What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Talk of the Tundra. I am your host, Numac, and I am joined today by Ty Windish. Ty, once again, thank you for joining me.
I was not gonna miss this one for the world, so no need to thank me here, and you'll
Oh
probably want to
yeah.
retract it after we argue later on in this show. But thank you for having me, Numak.
No problem. Also joining us today is our illustrious cruising for the bruising host, Andrew Snyder, who's got, from what I heard in the Discord sphere on the campfire per se, quite the opener being teased for Monday's episode of Cruising for a Bruising. So first off, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. The Milwaukee Brewers will decide whether or not I launch into a very interesting, we'll say, opener. But that's a time for another day. That's future Andrew's problem. Current Andrew is ready to talk about some NFL football. My alma mater opened their college football season yesterday, winning a game they would normally lose, dominating, but then trying to give it away, and then instead the other team gave it away. So I'm all in football mode, fired up and ready to go.
Snatched victory from the jaws of defeat, some might say.
They sure did. Shout out to college athletes that kick footballs because they are often bad at that job.
Yeah, it was a roller coaster ride for sure. Yes, before we jump into it, be sure to check out Cruising for a Bruising, Eurostep, Win in Six, and make time for this, GSPN's new pop culture, sort of everything junk drawer pod. Uh, we're always coming out with new stuff. What's that, 5 pods now? So it's almost an episode a week if we once we're all in full season. So we always got Wisconsin sports content for all you faithful listeners. And one more piece of housekeeping. We have a text line, and we are going to be approaching you guys asking for the Green Bay Packers record prediction, and reading those out on a pod later this week when we do the Packers overarching season preview. So if you haven't, text GSPN to 31032. Again, that's GSPN to 31032 to get signed up.
Boom.
Boom. And now for today's pod, we are doing a league-wide over-under prediction. It's going to be a wild ride this year in the NFL. There are a lot of good teams, the Packers included. And we figured we'd just kind of take a gloss over the league and see what we think about how many wins each teams are going to get. Because as for the Packers schedule, they've got a few games against some of those cream of the crop teams. And with that, we want to know how we're going to stack up against the rest of the league. So we are going to start with the AFC South, division that has primarily been ran by the Tennessee Titans the last 3-4 years, if I'm not mistaken. But Tennessee Titans right now over under 9.5 wins. I guess I'll broach one of you guys first. What do you think of the Titans' run over the last couple of years, and where do you think they're headed this year?
Yeah, so I like the Titans overall and what Mike Vrabel has done there. I am a little concerned that Derrick Henry was human for the first time in a couple years last season and got injured, and maybe he'll
Mm-hmm.
just be healthier and fine last year. And he has kind of bucked the, I guess, like new logic that running backs individually generally are not that important. He is certainly one of the exceptions to that, but injuries to a running back with that kind of miles is always a little concerning. Also, don't love that they lost A.J. Brown, who I think was pretty important in making Ryan Tannehill look good. So the over-under of 9.5, they've won 9 or more games in each of the 3 years with Mike Vrabel. Obviously, there's the extra game this year. I am actually going to start out by going under on the Titans because I think their division got better overall, even if it's still a pretty bad division.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like the skill position players taking that huge hit of losing AJ Brown, even though they do have a rookie there. They're pretty excited about a receiver, Traylon Burks, right? But
Yep.
I'm gonna go under. I think the offense takes a hit, and I don't think this is as good of a team as most of the other teams that have won divisions for the last few years around the NFL.
Andrew?
I'm going over, but just barely. I mean, this is a team that was middle of the road offense last year, middle of the road defense. And I think we're going to see another team in this division kind of figure out a two-team race against them. And then the other two are just going to be irrelevant. But I think you can make a case at them going 4-0 against Jacksonville and Houston, and I'm just banking those 4 wins for them. So that's kind of the leading factor in me saying that they're going to get just over that 9.5 range into 10-win territory.
Right.
They're such a weird team because you just hear the name Tennessee Titans and you're like, oh, I forgot they did all that like winning the last few years. I was
Right.
in Nashville when they host, or not when they hosted, but when they played in the AFC Championship game against KC, and I was like, oh, I was going to be there, and it still didn't occur to me that the Titans were in the AFC Championship game. That's how weird it is. I know what that's like being a fan of a franchise that many people think are irrelevant. So I think they'll eke out 10 wins, but it won't be enough to win the division this year.
For context, the 2 divisions they play outside of their own in their entirety are the NFC East, which is fine, and the AFC West, which good luck with that one, Tennessee.
Yeah. So I think jumping off of that, I'm going under as well for that purpose. 9, I guess we'll say 10 wins is going to be real tough when they have to face the AFC West, like you had mentioned, with the Chargers, with the Broncos, the Raiders, who aren't like going to be super good but have a chance to win the division, and obviously Kansas City. But then they also play the Packers one week and the Bengals. So the 2 games, or I can't find the last game that they have to play outside the division, but your 2 random games against Green Bay and Cincinnati is hard. And sort of jumping off of what you said, Ty, they didn't get better as a team. They let go A.J. Brown in a trade, and then Julio Jones signed with the Buccaneers, which like he wasn't that big of a contributor, but he was still a guy to catch passes for Ryan Tannehill. And
their other non-division game is in Buffalo, by the way.
Thank you.
So they have a really tough 3 random schedule games there in Tennessee.
Right, and 2 of them are away. They play at Buffalo and at Green Bay,
which is the 2 worst ones that you. I'd rather play in Cincy than in Buffalo or in GB if I'm the Titans.
Right. So yeah, I'm going under for just because they have a tough schedule, and I think that'll be similar to the rest of their division as well. Unless you guys have anything else, moving on to I think what is one of the more interesting teams in the NFL. This is early to say that in the podcast, but I think they truly are, is the Indianapolis Colts.
I was hoping you were going to say Texans.
We'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get there. But the Colts are also slated at 9.5 wins. So, by the way, we are using ESPN's over-under NFL 1 prediction from, I believe it was May. They put this out. But 9.5 for the Colts. They cut the loss of their losses and traded Carson Wentz to the Commanders, and subsequently, I believe it was traded for Matt Ryan, correct? Or did they just sign him?
No, they had to trade for him.
Okay, so yeah, then they traded for Matt Ryan, and we'll see if he has anything left in the tank to sort of bolster that offense after last year, because they were set to make the playoffs and fumbled it away. I don't think it was literally fumbled, but I'm pretty sure they just need to beat the Jaguars in week 18 and didn't. So for the Colts, I think I might go over. Yeah, I'm gonna go over. I think Jonathan Taylor maintains his dominance as the league's best running back, and hoping that Matt Ryan can find those receivers enough to make their offense worth it. They didn't re-sign T.Y. Hilton, so that'll be an interesting dynamic as to how they navigate that wide receiver with Michael Pittman, Paris Campbell, and others. But they have a seemingly significantly easier schedule, not having to play Green Bay, Buffalo, or the Bengals, and rather, I think it's Pittsburgh, and then New England, and then somebody else. But both those are quite a lot easier than the Packers, Bengals, and Chiefs.
I'm going over. Oh,
Yeah.
go ahead, Ty. Sorry.
No. You go. I don't. You're more ready than I am to talk about the Colts.
I'm going over. I think the quarterback change is just a level up of competence. And this is a team that nearly made the playoffs last year, despite having Carson Wentz as their primary quarterback, which is like a Herculean effort in the 2020s. I mean, they went into that last game against the 2-14 Jaguars at the time with needing a win in your end, and they couldn't do it. And I think if you get into a scenario like that again, and you've got Matt Ryan as your quarterback instead of Carson Wentz, and you've got, if Jonathan Taylor stays healthy, they find a way to reduce his workload but still get a lot of value out of him, because you don't want to see him go the way of like Christian McCaffrey for the Panthers, who can't stay healthy now. That balance, I think, will be enough to nudge them over that 9-8 record that they were at last year. I think they'll win the South and be just chum in the water for whatever team they have to face off with in the first round of the playoffs. But I think they will be a playoff team this year.
Yeah, I think I'm going to take the over. I mean, Matt Ryan was not very good last year. The question is, will he look better on a much better Colts team than the Falcons, which really their roster fell apart in the years following the 28-3 collapse there, which I think brings Andrew and I both a pretty good amount of joy still, as people at least sort of rooting for other NFC South teams. Yeah, I just think that they have an easier schedule. I think I like their team a little bit more than the Colts. I think if the than the Titans, excuse me. I think if the Colts are maybe a little bit running into place, you lose T.Y. Hilton, but I think Matt Ryan is probably still an upgrade over Wentz, even if Matt Ryan is on the decline now in his career. Like, I think they have an easier schedule, and they were roughly similar anyway, so I think I will take them. Their grab bag games are like at New England, which is not an easy place to win, but it's certainly not as bad as going into Buffalo or going into Green Bay. I think the others are versus
Minnesota and Pittsburgh.
Minnesota and Pittsburgh, yeah. So much easier. So yeah, I'm gonna roll with the Colts. I'll say over, but like barely, and it wouldn't surprise me if they won 9 and the division. Like, I think 9.5. It's gonna be within a half game of that, one way or the other.
Yeah, and they had a good defense last year too. Like they were ranked 10th overall, just in like total defense or like team defense. So I see them being good, but not like a super contender. So. Todd, you want to talk about the Texans? I guess what intrigues you about their Texans? They're slated at 4.5 wins, so they're, according to ESPN, going to go last in their division. But you seemed eager to talk about them. So, what intrigues you about the Houston Texans?
Yeah, I'm going to take the over because I think they can win 5 games. I think this is a not star-studded division, and I feel like divisions like this. I mean, it'll probably come down to whoever out of the Colts or Titans can do better against the Jags and Texans will probably be the team that wins the division. But I think the Texans are going to be competitive in all of their division games, and that I think they could easily pick up 3 wins in those 6 division games, just because division games tend to be pretty close unless there's a huge talent imbalance, and I don't see that in the AFC South. Right. I think Davis Mills shows he's like a competent NFL quarterback, which gives you a leg up over probably a couple of teams you'll end up facing due to injuries or other circumstances over the season. And it seems like there's some good buzz around some of their defensive players out of the Texans camp. So they've been drafting a lot. They have a lot of young players they took flyers on. They just drafted Derek Stingley, who seems like he could be an impact cornerback. They clearly are not going to be a great team, but I feel pretty good about the Texans being able to get like 5 wins as they're now in, year 2 of a rebuild, year 3 of a rebuild, versus some teams who may just kind of be careening into rebuilding now. And their random games at Chicago, eminently winnable, as we well know. I believe at Miami, and then versus Cleveland. So that one could be tough. We'll see. But
that's the first week Deshaun Watson comes back.
They win that game by 1,000,000 points. Actually, I'll pound the over. It's a lock. That's 1/5 of the wins they need right there. They are going to win that football game.
I'm here for it.
Stone cold lock.
Andrew?
I'm gonna do the under because I committed to this bit about the Titans and Colts both being over because of how bad their other 2 division opponents are going to be. So I'm gonna stick to the bit. I think the Davis Mills regression is coming. He showed a surprising level of competence last year, but I'm not buying it moving forward. I also just hate the organization on principle. So for that reason, under on the Houston Texans.
I think I'm stuck between the both of you. That I think the Titans are over, and I think the Titans were under and the Colts go over, but it was close. And I'm gonna go close again with the Texans, but I think it's instead of a half game, it's gonna be a game and a half, and I'm gonna go over. I think if Davis Mills shows he can be competent, that'll be a huge for their offense. But I'm super high on Dameon Pierce, their rookie running back, who has gotten comparisons to Javonte Williams in Denver, just a really hard north and south runner. And there's a lot of hype around him in Houston. So I think if they can become sort of a run first offense with Dameon Pierce and Marlon Mack, I think that'll help benefit them greatly. Where I do see a little bit of a challenge in getting to that 6-win mark that I'm predicting is their receiving core. I know they did just signed OJ Howard, who got cut from or was not, I don't think he was released, but he was ultimately not re-signed by the Buccaneers, and then the Bills signed him, and then from there they got cut in training camp. So the wide receiver core, as it stands, isn't very good. They signed Tyler Johnson from the Bucks camp off of waivers. They have John Mitchell III. Brandon Cooks is really their star receiver, and we'll just kind of see how that goes for them. Like I've always been mid on Brandon Cooks. He's been either really good some weeks or not existing.
He's going to be great in the 4 games he plays and shows up for the Texans.
Yeah.
And then they'll have to find answers the other 13 games. Is the Brandon Cooks story. Unfortunately for him, post New Orleans.
Right. So, yeah, I'm going to go over in hopes of that they can show some semblance of competency on offense. And then the last one, the one that is perpetually probably under, the Jacksonville Jaguars. They are slated at somehow 6.5 wins. I'm hitting the under.
It's an easy over for me.
I'm going under because I will never ever believe in that franchise until they prove to me they can not be a bumbling 53 set of idiots.
Well, they were in the AFC Championship game within the decade. So they're not the Lions. Sorry, Lions.
Right.
Who I like, they're a rebuild, but they have not gone to the playoffs or whatever. And not won a playoff game in 50 years. Is that the stat?
Something like that.
I think they went with Megatron like once, but I don't think they've won.
Yeah.
So there's a strong correlation between the teams who spend the most money and the immediate after season over under and win performance, and it does help by a few wins. And I think it's easy to just look at what the Jaguars did this last summer and go, these are bad moves, they will hurt the team, and they will in the long term. Paying Christian Kirk like a WR1 is not going to be good for the next 5 years, but it'll be good for the next year. I mean, it's better to have Christian Kirk than to not have Christian Kirk. He's still a useful player. And I think that goes for pretty much all of their signings. Like, they didn't sign guys who are going to actively hurt their football team this year. They signed guys who will actively hurt their cap sheet in 2024, which is dumb considering they have Trevor Lawrence and everything, who look terrible. But I think between spending the money and getting better players and swapping out Urban Meyer, who cannot do this. I literally think any of the three of us, just because we're not insane and out like just wild boys at the club, could do a better job coaching the Jaguars than Urban Meyer did. Doug Peterson is a good NFL coach and especially good to work with flighty quarterbacks. I think he'll help Lawrence especially, but really the whole team. He won't be kicking them. So, I mean, I think I'm not like, oh yeah, Jags for the division. But I think 7 wins should be doable, especially if Lawrence starts to look at least like an average NFL quarterback, which I think is under what we would have all expected him to look like by this point when he got drafted. I mean, he was that guy. So unless everyone just totally missed the eval, I think it'll be pretty easy for them to go, what would it be, 7-10? Like that's not that much, especially again in this sloppy division.
Yeah.
I'm hitting the under at 6-12 or 6-11. 11. How many games they play?
Yep, 6-11.
Six. Yeah, my brain is mush. Yeah, I think if I were the coach of the Jaguars, I would bring a much more low key presence. Like when I'm at the bar, I'm just going to be in the like a corner booth to myself, just sipping a Cabernet and scrolling through Brewers highlights on my phone. So definitely won't bring any headlines.
That's what the team needs, man.
About who I'm talking to in the bar because I will be alone. Yeah, I think this season is going to represent progress. It's going to be the next step in Lawrence looking like the guy that you expect to have when you have that first pick, but I think it's not going to be all the way there yet. And I think that is all these points about the change in coach going from Urban Meyer to Doug Peterson is just definitely a level up. The Urban Meyer thing is insane. I'm on the countdown clock to when Urban Meyer becomes the guy who's supposed to save Nebraska. I really look forward to that storyline and eventual reality. Just like hook it to my veins. I'm so ready for it. Upgrades in the receiver room are good. Obviously, you've got a good pass catching tight end in Evan Ingram. Kirk just like going out there and his agent just dropping a grenade into the market and just being like, this is what you pay receivers now. Like was a great offseason storyline as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, 6 wins for the Jags for me.
Shades of Timothy Mozgov for that contract. Just like, why are you paying?
Let's not put that on Christian Kirk, but it has to be brought up. So I applaud you for bringing it up.
Right. So that wraps up the AFC South.
Did you went under?
I went under. Just incredible under. They're the Jaguars, man. Like they're one of those franchises that I half root for to be good, just to stop having to think
it's
about.
It's not been that long. It's not been that. I don't think we need to do that with the Jags.
But we do, because like the significance of the year they made it to the AFC Championship game wasn't sustained enough for me to think that it wasn't just a fluke year.
I feel like there's enough teams that have had no success that they can be okay with that.
So like my barometer for that is like
cough,
at least
cough.
Right. I think like the barometer for that for me is they haven't had any players that are even worth it, that are to be excited about besides Jalen Ramsey. Like that was their one player who was really star-studded on that team. But other than that, since like Maurice Jones-Drew and Fred Taylor were there, I haven't been excited about anybody coming out of the Jaguars.
Since 2000, 3 playoff appearances.
Yeah, it's not great, but it's something.
Right.
It's something.
Hey, they'll always have 2017.
The Browns have one.
Yeah.
That time, I think. Maybe 2.
Right. They're their own pit of despair.
Yeah, well, we'll get to the Browns, but
we'll get to the Browns.
It's too late. I mean, whatever. The Jags play in Detroit, at Jets, and then I think they have a tough versus Baltimore is their other random game.
Which is, I think, weird, is because like Baltimore is obviously good, but they were so plagued by injuries this year. The thing, if I'm not mistaken, how that works is your 3 random games are against 3 random teams that are matched where you finished.
Yeah.
That's why the Titans play the Bengals, the Packers, and the Bills.
Yeah.
And their 3 random games. They face their other 3 matches in a random division. And so the Ravens will be a tough random game for them because the Ravens are better than their 4th place seeding they were last year, just because they're played by injuries. So yeah, until they prove otherwise, Jaguars under.
They're getting a win in the first 2 weeks because the Colts cannot win in Jacksonville for whatever reason.
Here's to hoping. Alrighty, moving on to the AFC East. Obviously, this division has been, since Tom Brady left, run by the Buffalo Bills. Looking like more of the same this year. If Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs are going to be as healthy, or just healthy, they'll be good. That team is scary. They're a Super Bowl favorite. We'll start with them and kind of work our way down. If I can find the number, the Bills are slated at 11.5 wins, our first double-digit win prediction. And I think they're going to go over. I think this team is going to be the AFC representative in the Super Bowl. And I really want to see them succeed with Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs. Their defense swarms. It's incredible. and playing in Buffalo is always difficult. So they've got a lot of things going for them, and I think their running back room is going to be interesting between Devin Singletary, uh, Zach Moss, and I forget who their third running back is, but he's let me look at it. James Cook I think is their rookie. They're excited about. So they've got. I'm not gonna say a three-headed monster because we don't really know. They're not all that good to be called a three-headed monster. But it'll be an interesting dynamic as to how they play off of those three running backs. And then they added Jamison Crowder, which isn't going to be a super game changer, but another weapon to take somebody off of Stephon Diggs. And then Gabe Davis is continuing to show out after his sort of emergence in last year's playoff run. I think he against the Kansas City he had a few touchdowns. I think he had 2 or 3 against them. So yeah, more of the same out of Buffalo. I think they go 12, possibly 13 wins.
I'm hammering the over. I'm all in, drinking all of the magic hope juice that the media is trying to serve me about the Bills and making them Super Bowl favorites. I'm all in. Sean McDermott, the coach, it's the original version of Carolina Panthers North, which is also taking up root in Washington as well in the Ron Rivera era, except this one's going well. Arguably, if they play to their capabilities on both sides of the ball, they could have a top 5 defense and a top 5 offense.
Yep.
Obviously, losing Brian Dable, who's now the head coach of the Giants, is that right?
Yeah, yes.
Well, I thought it was Brian Flores. Bill Belichick texted me and said it was Brian Flores. Was he wrong about that?
You were supposed to respond, new phone, who's this? It was how that was supposed to go. So yeah, losing him, obviously, as he was a lot of the brains behind the operation and what they do offensively there. But I think Josh Allen is Josh Allen, and I really love his story because we knew all the jokes coming into his draft year, and people were like, "Oh, he's not going to be accurate enough. He just slings the ball and doesn't know where it's going." And he's turned into just one of the most exciting players to watch in the NFL. I've loved that. I have this team just doing all the things they're supposed to do this year because they've got that talent and that continuity as well on both sides of the line of scrimmage, and they're going to be great this year. That's hot take. I'm stepping out on a limb on my first time on Talk of the Tundra. You guys hear about these Buffalo Bills? Heard they're pretty good.
They're pretty good. For what it's worth, the Bills had the best offense in terms of yards allowed last year. They allowed only 4,600 yards.
You mean defense?
Yes, defense. My apologies. They had the top defense last year, and had 19 interceptions, which is good.
Good. Hard to sustain, but good.
Yeah.
Interceptions have a lot of variation year over year, but I think they're going to be a great defense, a great offense. I'm going to take the over. They play the NFC North, which is pretty nice for them. And then I think they also play the NFC North or the AFC North. Yeah. So those are their 2 divisions they play. They start the year, first game of the year, actually, in Los Angeles against the Rams, which will be a very fun game to watch. And then they also get Tennessee, which is a pretty good first seed team to get for them. And I'm looking. And then they played Cincinnati anyway. They have somebody else too. But yeah, I think they play in a pretty weak division. I think they're a very good football team. They play at Kansas City, so that's less fun. But I think they can hang with anyone. I think they'll probably win at least half of their toss-up games against really good teams, and I think they'll win at a very high rate against the Vikings, Lions, etc. of the world. So yeah, I'm going to take the over here too. I think 13 is probably more in line with where I would expect the Bills to finish after this season. Also, one of the best home field advantages, I think, especially as we get later in the year.
I'm
also,
looking at
if anyone listening knows of any Bills bars near Times Square, let me know. And then if you're there, you can spike me through a table on Thursday. The season opener. I'll go cosplay for a day. So.
For what it's worth, they don't really have any difficult away games outside of Kansas City. They play
at LA.
Maybe. It's the first game of the season. I think more nerves will play that into the actual fan base and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But Kansas City is the only one I really associate with like having a crazy fan base. Like
At New England, I think is always a little tough.
yeah, I just think that it's different when it's a division rival. Like
Yeah.
going into Minnesota is different for most other teams than it is for the Packers. Because the Packers have played there countless times before. They know so what to expect.
They definitely got lucky that their NFC North away games are Detroit and Chicago, the two obvious worst teams in the division.
If it's flipped, they have a much harder away schedule.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, I think they have not a cakewalk schedule, but I think they have a really simple schedule.
According to Sharp Football Analysis, I got more refined here as we went. They are 18th in strength of schedule this season.
Yeah, so that tracks.
One being easiest. So it's a little harder, but they're also really good, so I think that balances out.
Yeah. I think those 3 games against the division winners bumps that out.
Yeah, 100%.
Moving on, unless you guys have anything else to talk about Bills Mafia, we'll go Patriots. And we'll kind of tease the Dolphins next. Because the Dolphins are interesting too. Patriots are slated at 8.5 for their over/under in Mac Jones's second season. We'll go Andrew. Andrew, what do you think about the New England Patriots and Macaroni Jones?
Under Mac Jones stinks. He's not good. I don't think we would even be talking about him if he were a quarterback for the Lions or a relevant team XYZ. The Carolina Panthers. We wouldn't be talking about him if he was a Carolina Panther. So I'll throw the shade back on myself. I think last year was an anomaly. I think it was a fluke. I think it's going backwards this year. The post Tom Brady Belichick divorce is going to keep looking worse for Belichick. They're going to finish with 8 wins. They're going to miss the playoffs. I have them as the third best team in this division. And the only reason they're the third best is because there's just utter incompetence in that fourth team. I'm also just a Patriots hater. Like, we go into this podcast with me here as a guest. You just know that I'm just doing this based purely on vibes. Like, I'm a vibes guy when it comes to football, and tall guy, throw ball, go far is kind of my approach to analysis, which is why I love Josh Allen so much. And the Patriots suck. Their reign is over. Turns out Tom Brady was the guy. Turns out it was him. It wasn't you, Bill. It was Tom.
Yeah,
it was all Tom.
I'm taking the L on that one too.
I was on the other side of that, and I still don't know how committed I am to this take, but for right now, Patriots under. Let me take a sip from my haterade.
Go ahead, Tyler.
So I think Bill is still. I mean, he's going to be looked at as one of the greatest coaches and deserves that. But I think he is a great defensive coach, and they were second in points allowed per game last season, which is a very Patriots thing to do. Although now their cornerback room is really depleted, and we'll see if Bill can work some magic after trading Stephon Gilmore to the Panthers last year. Or do I have the player wrong? I think it was him. Yeah.
Yeah, it was Gilmore.
They play a man-heavy style. There's not that many man corner specialists left in the league these days. The passing revolution has shifted things to zone. We'll see. They'll probably have at least an okay defense, maybe better. It's not shocking to me that reports out of the shared practices and Patriots camp and everything, and just in the preseason, are that their offense is an abject disaster because they have no offensive coordinator. It's somewhere between Matt Patricia and Joe Judge, two guys who were too incompetent to hold jobs in New York and Detroit. Like, it was so obvious, even in the world of the New York Giants. I guess it doesn't matter which New York team, right? Even in the world of New York and Detroit football, these guys were so bad it stood out as worse than the norm around those franchises. And yeah, I think Mac Jones is like, I don't know, the 25th to 30th best quarterback in the NFL. I think he's like, yeah, he'll put the ball on a route. He's not going to do anything special. I don't think that's enough with a pretty worse than average group of pass catchers. And the only reason it's not abjectly terrible is they spent a ton of money at tight end. But it's certainly not, you can't really talk about old Patriots tight ends going too deep without getting into muddy waters. But it's not the best Patriots tight end room we've ever seen, that's for sure.
Right.
I just think their offense is going to be a disaster. I'm taking the under. I think even if their defense is good, there's only so much that you can paper over. if your offense is terrible. Like we talk about the Packers in this context, like can they be carried by their defense? They still have Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Jones. Like it's not an awful offense. This
Right.
looks to me like it could well be an awful offense. And I don't think Mac Jones is a special quarterback who can make up for the lack of talent and stuff around him. So I'm going to take the under here. I agree with Andrew. They are the third best team in the AFC East.
I struggle with this pick because while I don't believe so much in Mac Jones, I think their running backs are good enough to make up the difference. Like Damian Harris is a good running back, and they're expecting quite a jump from Ramondre Stevenson this year. And the Patriots having running backs that are good is always a weird thing because Bill Belichick refuses to use one consistently. Like he'll just bench a player for 6 games if they
Also,
fumble.
yeah, if you
once.
fumble, you're in a gulag somewhere in
Yeah.
Foxborough.
But I think similar to the Jaguars, they spent a little bit on Devontae Parker and it was Nelson Aguilar. Yeah, Nelson Aguilar was there last year. They got rid of N'Keal Harry, which is a plus for them. He's plays for the Bears now, even though I think he just got injured. But I think Jacoby Myers and Nelson Aguilar and Devontae Parker is an at best okay receiving core. Bunch of guys who had trouble proving themselves elsewhere. Like I said, Devontae Parker and Nelson Aguilar, that is, but 8.5. I'm gonna go under with you guys. I think I have to go under. I think it's under at 8. I think they go 8 and 9. So just barely under 500 or aggression from Mac Jones or from the defense. And maybe Bill Belichick will retire after this year. I doubt it. He's like Emperor Palpatine and lives forever. So we'll see how that goes. So all three of us are under. That seems like a lock, stock, and barrel kind of prediction for this year. Also at 8.5 wins according to ESPN is the Miami Dolphins. I see Andrew is rubbing his hands together because he might be a Tua believer. Andrew, are you part of Tuanon? Do you know what Tuanon is?
I can be. It sounds scary, but
It's
really,
go ahead. Sorry.
Really, what I am is just like I'm in the Mike McDaniel hive. But go ahead, tell me what Tuanon is.
So Tuanon, I have a friend who is a big Miami Dolphins fan, and there's a subsect of Dolphins Twitter that is like QAnon, but for Tua, and they have like receipts of everyone's bad takes on Tua, like when minicamp was happening, and there was that story about how Tua couldn't throw that ball. It was super underthrown, and they're like, well, actually, if you look at this video and this video, it shows the balls traveled 60 yards in the air, and they just put out like the anonymous style cryptic videos about how Tua is actually good, and everyone needs to watch out for him to be good because the cold takes are coming when he's good.
Oh baby, I love that.
It's
love
good stuff.
That. It's a good way to spend like your time. So I'm over on the Dolphins. This is a year in the AFC where I think there's a lot of conversation around, all right, who slides out of that playoff picture and who slides in, because you'd expect teams like the Ravens or the Broncos maybe to bump up and maybe the Steelers or the Titans to fall back. And there are some other teams in that mix that are candidates for that. And I think one of the candidates to go in and steal one of those wild card spots is the Dolphins. I'm calling over. I don't know if they'll fully get there, but I like Mike McDaniel. I think there's talent for Tua to work with now. I mean, you've got second year of Jalen Waddle, and then you add Hill to the mix. Now, I know the issue in theory there is that Hill's greatest strength is to stretch the field vertically. And Tua, you worry about, does he have the arm talent to get it there? I have faith in Mike McDaniel to gear this offense to Tua's strengths, which is delivering a catchable ball into space for his receivers. So if he can game plan around Tua's weaknesses, I think they can have an offense that's just good enough to win. I had a stat pulled up about their defense, and now I've lost it. But, 9-8 last year, despite just a season of turmoil as well, because you've got a lot of controversy about how ownership and the front office just treated Brian Flores so poorly. A year removed from that, McDaniel in his second year there as a head coach or is he their new coach this year? What am I doing?
New
When
coach, I
New
think.
coach.
Oh wow,
Yeah,
so
Flores
okay,
was
yeah,
just last year. A lot has happened
that
with Miami.
wow, that feels like it was 10 years ago.
I
Yeah,
know.
It does.
but I mean, Mike McDaniel. To the big point why I'm in on this is because he made Jimmy G
Mm.
look good from time to time, and I think he can do the same for Tua.
Hmm.
I agree with everything you said, and I really want to go over this to me. And I'm done with my advanced schedule metrics because I have the Dolphins at like a pretty mid schedule. This to me is like a brutal schedule. So they start home against New England, then they visit Baltimore, then home against Buffalo, then they visit Cincy is their first 4 games. Then they have a couple easier ones, Jets, a really important home back to back, not back to back, but 2 straight home games against the Vikings and Steelers. Then 2 really important road games at Detroit and Chicago, and they need to win like 3 out of 4 of those cupcake games because then it's home versus Cleveland by home versus Houston, at Niners, at Chargers, at Bills, home against the Packers, at New England before they finish with the Jets. I'm just counting the winnable games and assuming they don't win all of them. I do think they're going to struggle to get to 9 or 10 wins, and I don't think it's not because I think they're going to be worse. I just think it's a pretty difficult schedule and just a hard AFC, and they got pretty unlucky, I think, with some of these other teams that they're up against across the conference and across the divisions. So I think I'm going to go under, actually. And I like the Dolphins, but I think I'm going to go under just because I don't trust them yet enough to take care of all of the games they should win. And I certainly don't trust them to, like, do any better than, like, 1-3 is optimistic for that late season stretch with all those road games and then home against the Packers. So
Right.
I'm going to lean under just because I think they're going to have trouble with this schedule.
I think I have to go over just because one of my best friends is the Dolphins fan, like I had mentioned, and I've heard him suffer for the Dolphins' success for years, and I think this year is the year that Tua makes his leap. This has to be the year for Tua. They've put a team around Tua that for all intents and purposes should be really good. They have really good pass catchers in Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and Mike Gesicki, and then they have a really weird running back room, but a running back room that is set to be good if they can all stay healthy between Chase Edmonds, who came over from Arizona, Myles Gaskin, Raheem Mostert, and then fullbacks might be almost dead in the NFL, but Bayport native from Green Bay, Alec Ingold, is keeping that dream alive, and he is signed with the Dolphins this offseason, and he's been really good at pass blocking and getting those really short yardage needs to get first downs in like 3rd and 4th down in Las Vegas when he was there. So they have a lot of talent on offense. Also, Cedric Wilson from Dallas came over too and got a bag from the Dolphins. So for all intents and purposes, this is Tua's playoff spot to lose. I'm going to go over. I'm hesitant about it, but I think they get there. I think it's 8.5 they had, I had said.
Yep.
8.5. I think they get 9.
I don't know if that's going to be a playoff spot in this conference, by the way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I hedged and said they're in the mix, but I don't know if they'll get there. And
Yeah.
if this conversation tells you anything about sports post-COVID and brains post-COVID, I imagined a whole season in between last season and this season in an alternate reality where Mike McDaniel got his first season under his belt. He's a 5'9" guy with glasses, so I'm just required to just go all over. That's just kind of the way it goes.
He also seems cool, so more similarities there, Andrew.
Yes.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
Yeah.
You get seven playoff spots, right?
Yeah.
It might sink into that last spot. It might sink in. So yeah, in the mix is probably a better way to put it. I'm a believer. That defense is good too, between Davian Howard and I didn't even know they had Melvin Ingram, which is impressive. But yeah, they have another good defense. So here's to hoping the Dolphins get out of their pit of despair for 1 year, a la the Jacksonville Jaguars in 2017.
There you go.
Lastly,
Jets.
we'll talk briefly about the Jets. 5.5. It's under. It's such an easy under.
It's under. They have a really soft second half of the year, which I was looking through, and I was like, how could it possibly even be this high? They obviously two New England games. New England's not great. Chicago, Minnesota, Detroit, Jacksonville, Seattle, all in the back half. So I guess that's why the number is this high. But I'm still going under. Zach Wilson's not healthy to start the year. They're not a good football team. They're clearly the worst team in the division, which never helps. So I'm going to take the under here.
I'm going to take the under. Zach Wilson's got more important things to worry about, I think. And Jets, Jets, the under. Hammer it.
Also, poor Mekhi Becton is out again for the year, right? That's their offensive tackle, I want to say, who everyone's high on but just cannot stay healthy, which is a big blow because one of their premier draft picks over the last 2 years or 3 years as they've been rebuilding. So, yeah, under for the Jets.
I think they're building towards something worthwhile. They're not there yet. And like Zach Wilson isn't the guy that's going to lead them.
Well, then they're not building toward that much worthwhile if he's not the guy because they don't have that much else in terms of premier young players.
Well, they do. They just drafted a bunch of them. Like Breece Hall is going to be good.
See. We haven't seen these guys play.
Right.
But if you don't have the quarterback in line, there's a pretty hard ceiling.
Their skill positions on offense are measurably better than Zach Wilson. I think Breece Hall is going to be very good. Corey Davis is still okay. He wants to get traded, but he's another piece. He's not young. But between Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson, those are two really exciting wide receiver pieces to have. I'm huge on both of them. So if they can find, or if and when, I don't think it happens, but if Zach Wilson makes that jump, they'll be pretty good in their pass catcher role of their offense. But yeah, they just need to find somebody that isn't Zach Wilson after this year. I think it's going to be a similar career route to Daniel Jones is what Zach Wilson's going to have. So that wraps up the AFC East. Moving on, I think we ought to go to the AFC North. We can get this beef that Ty and I have out of the way.
3 of these teams have the same over-under, by the way.
They do.
Which is fun.
Which is very fun. So this division obviously includes one of the Super Bowl participants last year in the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll start with them so we can start off hot. I think the Bengals are smashing, absolutely hammering that over at 9.5 wins. I've likened their season this year to that of the Packers in 2011. They made the Super Bowl, and with a relatively unproven and young quarterback and Joe Burrow, with Aaron Rodgers in 2010, they made the Super Bowl and won. Sort of a similar team in that they had a year together now, and with everything in place, and they're going to put it all together, and I think go on a pretty big run this year. 9.5 is their over-under, I said. I think they get to 13. I really like Joe Burrow. I really like Jamar Chase. I think it's going to be a fun year in Cincinnati.
They 9.5 is such a low number that I kind of just want to go over, even if I am low on them and I don't think they win the division. But they do have a pretty hellish end of the year. So starting in week 12, at Tennessee versus the Chiefs versus the Browns, at Tampa, at New England versus the Bills versus Baltimore. Their earlier part is much easier, and getting to play Pittsburgh twice is a mixed bag. I don't think they sweep. I don't think anyone sweeps Pittsburgh.
They could go 9-0 in the first 9 weeks. That is a pretty easy schedule the first 9 weeks. Pittsburgh, Dallas, Jets, Miami, Baltimore, Saints, Falcons, Browns, Panthers.
Yeah, I think they're like 7-2, 6-3 after that, but we obviously differ on them a lot. Yeah, I'm gonna go over just because I don't think they're bad and they don't have a hard schedule, and this is a really low over/under for this team, I think.
Yep.
But I think they're like at 10, which is why I'm going over, and I don't think they're the best team in the division. I think they're good. I think they took advantage of a really well set up run, and the worst half of football we've ever seen from Patrick Mahomes. And like, I wouldn't expect them to beat the Chiefs again in the playoffs. I wouldn't expect them to beat the Bills in the playoffs. So we'll see how it goes. But I'm taking over just because 9.5 is pretty low, and they don't have a hard schedule.
You're teasing me on who you think the best team in this division is. You're also teasing me on who you think they're losing 3 games to in those first 9 games.
I mean, at Dallas, I think could go either way. I'm low on Dallas, but at Dallas, that's not a for sure win. At Baltimore, I think could certainly go to Baltimore. And then one of at Cleveland, at New Orleans.
Fair enough. That's Cleveland without Deshaun Watson.
Yeah, I think they're probably better then. So, based on the fact he couldn't complete a 5-yard pass in the preseason, everyone hates him.
I did see that. Yeah.
So, I think Jacoby Brissett Browns are going to have more wins than now I'm spoiling my Browns takes, but
don't you mean the Kellen Mond-led Browns?
No, I don't. He's not a real football player. If he's starting, then I have to change my mind. Jacoby Brissett, I trust a lot more.
Andrew, what do you think of the Cincinnati Bengals? Do you think they're more the Bengals or the Bungles this year?
I have a slight over at 10 wins. And I agree with Ty that I think there's another team in this division that is going to win the division, despite some obvious flaws on their roster. I think it comes down to one thing this year. There's one player that is going to separate the AFC North and decide the division race. And if that player is on the field, he doesn't play for the Bengals. And I love Joe Burrow. I'm a big Joe Burrow guy. Last year was awesome, but they were also, like you said, beneficiaries of a pathway that opened up for them, and they took the ball and ran with it. But I think there's a better team in this division.
Andrew, can we just co-hammer the Ravens over now?
Co-hammer the Ravens over if Lamar Jackson's healthy.
Hammer it. Lamar Jackson, MVP, gonna get the bag this year. Let's get it, baby. We love the Ravens. We love John Harbaugh. Underrated because of the injuries. 9.5. They got it.
And I'm not disagreeing with you guys. Like, I think the Ravens are also over. I just think that the Bengals win the division over the Ravens. Like, I think they're both playoff teams, which is, again, we're getting into the territory of.
This is why it's Rip Dolphins, because it's not the best division in the conference, and there could easily be 3 or even 4 teams you could convince me could make the playoffs from this division.
Right.
I do have worries about the Ravens. Just because you can move the ball against that defense, and I think they were bottom half of the league defense last year. But I just think everything it's a butterfly effect thing, and like who knows how things change. But I think just having your marquee quarterback in your team and leading you is just such a huge thing in the NFL. And getting Lamar back just has me so high on them bouncing back.
Yeah.
While also liking the Bengals, but it's flip a coin. But I think they win that division by a game.
It's always health with them, right? Like last year's that's why they finished 4th. They were just obliterated by injuries, particularly in their running back room. The running back room is so weird to me. Like, it's not a stretch to say that Lamar Jackson's probably their best running back. Because like J.K. Dobbins is good. Gus Edwards is good. Justice Hill, when he had to fill in those couple years ago, was okay. But like Lamar Jackson is such a dynamic quarterback, which is what makes him so good and worthy of that big contract he's seeking. That it's such a weird roster they have and how it's constructed. Because like outside of Mark Andrews, I'm not really high on any of their pass catchers. Like Rashad Bateman out of Minnesota missed almost all of last year, if not mistaken, or missed most of last year with an injury. He was slated to be good. He was one of the top receivers out of the draft last year, but between Rashad Bateman, Devin Duvernay, Demarcus Robinson, James Proche, who's I couldn't tell you how he played, but it just seems like their weapons are lackluster after losing Hollywood Brown. So it's gonna be weird. It's gonna be weird for the Ravens. I think again they are going to hit the over. But I think that's more of a showcase of how good Lamar Jackson is versus how good the team is.
Yeah. Lamar, in my opinion, easily the most disrespected on a regular basis quarterback in the NFL. The questions we keep asking about a guy who's won MVP and who, since he took over as starter midway through the 2018 season, according to ESPN's Jamison Hensley, he has a 37-12 winning percentage. The only quarterback who's got a better winning percentage in that time is Patrick Mahomes. So I'm riding with Lamar. I really like John Harbaugh as well, and think he's proven more than Zach Taylor at this point. So I'm gonna go with the Ravens as the team in the AFC North. Pound the over. I think they get up to like 11, 12 wins.
Yeah, I think they're like I agree with you that he is definitely a disrespected um quarterback. I think the reason for that is when he's good, he's really good. When he's bad, he's atrocious. Like there's some games where it's not there for him. And I think that's kind of like where all the haters kind of look to is that his bottoming out is almost always pretty bad. Like against Cleveland last year, he had a game where he had um one touchdown and four picks. Like that's not good. And so I think they look to that harder than they look to a game where he has four touchdowns and no picks, just because haters like to look at the bad stuff, right? But I'd probably agree with that. He is one of the more disrespected quarterbacks in the NFL. But moving on to the perpetual sadness, the factor of sadness, the Cleveland Browns and their garbage of a human being at quarterback for the last half of their season. Over under again, 9.5 wins. I am going to take the under on that. I don't think they can do anything in the beginning part of their schedule that is going to make them viable for the 10-win mark.
I don't think they can do anything in the end of their schedule that will be either.
Yeah, it's a tough schedule after Deshaun Watson comes back week 13 at Houston, and they follow that with the Bengals, Baltimore, the Saints, the Commanders, and the Steelers. But before that, when they don't have Deshaun Watson, they have Tampa, Buffalo, and Miami.
Chargers.
Yeah, Chargers. I won't say anything about Atlanta because they're not that good.
No.
New England is a toss-up game for them. Baltimore, so it's going to be.
They need to start basically like 4-0 or at worst 3-1 to have any shot of going over.
Yeah.
The week one, honestly, against Andrews, keep pounding the funniest team slogan or hashtag of all time, Panthers. They like that's the one maybe they could drop, and maybe versus Pittsburgh, but probably not both, because after that first 4 games, it gets like pretty relentless from there on out for the Browns. So, I think they're like a good core. I think there's a little bit of a Broncos thing going on here where their core is probably not as great as it was a couple years ago because it's just taken them a while to get the quarterback thing sorted out, and it's just hard to keep that together. Like their offensive line has a huge hole at center right now. They've had a bunch of injuries there. I know they were hoping to be able to bring back Corey Linsley, who's the center who just retired. Was it J.C. Treader?
J.C. Treader.
J.C. Treader. I'm getting my former Packer interior offensive lineman mixed up there, but that's not happening anymore. So, I think they still have a very good roster. I think it's certainly taken some hits since like 2 years ago, which again, same deal as the Broncos, who had like this loaded roster. Then there's a lot of attrition. They're not as good. Then they get the quarterback. I mean, we'll see how good Watson even is. Again, he looked terrible when he first played with them. He's not going to be able to practice or get familiarity with the team down. I think it's really hard to come in mid-season as a quarterback and be effective. We'll see. But yeah, I'm going to pound the under here, excuse me. I think they are. I think they finished fourth in this division, quite honestly.
Could see it.
First of all, put some respect on Sam Mills' name. Keep pounding. Second of all, I think I'm going the under, but I think there's a path to them actually starting the season well with Jacoby Brissett. He's not going to lose you games. He can be a game manager and just kind of settle in and not have anything bad happen that's going to be catastrophic. Former classmate of mine, so again, biased, doing this all on vibes. I think it was a sociology class. Never spoke to him. But anyway, probably fell asleep in that class. I did, not him. He was very studious and smart. Meanwhile, I was like, what the hell's going on? But they start in Carolina, which is a coin flip game. Then you have the Jets.
That's Baker's 6 touchdowns that game. I don't know what you're talking about.
Buddy, I've got my tickets. I'll be in the building, so I'm gonna be doing my part.
I want Baker
happen.
to beat the bricks off the Browns, dude.
Yeah.
That's the dream.
We're all rooting for that.
So if they can withstand the Baker Mayfield onslaught in week 1, you've got New York, Pittsburgh, Atlanta. There's a path to them being 4-0 and not having Deshaun Watson, because I just think the Jets, Steelers, and Falcons suck that much. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I'm just going to put all faith in my Panthers to get their season started off with an L and send them on a downward spiral. But there's a path to them being in a decent spot after 4 games and being like, okay, and that just kind of carries them to some mid-tier mediocrity where they finish like 8 and 9. Right. I'm taking the under, and I'm rooting for the disaster scenario where just nothing goes right.
That'd be great. It would be maybe the best possible scenario of them going over is they tear it up with Brissett, and then they're like reluctant to give it back to Watson, and they do, and they start losing, and there's like a whole, we wasted all our money when a Jacoby Brissett guy could have made this team good enough. Like, if they go over, I hope that's how they go over, because somehow Jacoby starts out like 6-5 or something. But yeah, I'm going the under. This is also the easiest team in the NFL to root against now, which they were the saddest. They were, like you said, factory of sadness. I don't think anyone feels bad anymore.
Well, that's the thing is, like, I forget where I saw it, but has there ever been a team in, like, pro sports in general that had built up so much goodwill as, like, the Browns did? Like, everybody kind of rooted for the Browns, right? They were similar to the Lions. That we just wanted to see them do something, see them succeed, see them win. And they do that with Baker Mayfield. And you're like, okay, you're building towards something. And then they go and do just, they nuked their culture.
Yeah.
And all of their goodwill amongst their non-Browns fans.
I was going to say, the fans are in. They standing ovation at camp, which is why people say, oh, you should feel bad for the fans. No, I don't need to at all, actually. I don't know these people.
Not even a little bit.
But yeah, right. No.
But still, it's just, yeah, it's insane. But to get off of that dump truck of a person, the pass catchers for the Browns are an enigma. They traded for Amari Cooper, and
I like that move.
I like the move, but
we'll see.
He's really their only pass catcher.
Yeah, well, Baker and OBJ just didn't have the same water sign or whatever. So I don't know much about signs.
No, but yeah, I think it's going to be tough sledding on the pass catching side of that. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I'm glad we're all under on the Cleveland Browns. Lastly, the Pittsburgh Steelers, which again aren't probably going to be that good.
We disagree.
Really?
What's the is it 7.5?
7.5.
Over. I don't need to explain more than Mike Tomlin won't go under 500. Over.
Fair enough. I think their defense is definitely good enough to win them games. Like, I think that initial matchup against the Browns early in the year, that could be a really strong game for their defense, just to wreak havoc on Jacoby Brissett, and they might win that game because of it. Also a Thursday night game on Prime Video, which I'm sure we'll have like 6 people watching.
I'll be there.
But tough schedule. They face Buffalo and Tampa back to back, which is tough in the early part of the year. But as you look sort of into the second half of their schedule, relatively easy outside of Baltimore and Vegas. They end the year with Atlanta, Baltimore, Panthers, Vegas, Baltimore, and Cleveland. So Baltimore twice in 4 weeks is going to be twice in a month, essentially. It's going to be tough. But yeah, I think, I'm trying to remember, I went over on Baltimore, over on the Bengals, under on Cleveland. I'll go under on Pittsburgh at like 6 or 7. I'll let they make it to 7.5 with Mitch Trubisky. I'll leave his nickname out of it. Leading the helm.
I'm going under as well. I think there's a first time for everything, and this is the first time Mike Tomlin has a season under 500. I'm also going to predict they get a random tie again.
Oh yeah,
just for vibes.
that's
again.
Pittsburgh Steelers football, baby.
Let's go. Yeah, my buddy's a Steelers fan, so I hope he's listening to this. They had a minus 55 point differential last year, despite their 9-7-1 record.
Yep,
and they made the playoffs.
Thanks, Chargers.
Yeah, seriously. I just don't. I don't think Kenny Pickett is the rookie that's going to come in and give you immediate success, and that means I guess you're starting the season with Trubisky, which I also do not think is a recipe for success. For those two reasons, I mean, modern NFL, it's about the quarterback, baby, and so I have no faith in the Steelers when they finish 10-6-1.
Yep.
With their tie and make the playoffs again.
Yep.
You can invite me back on here, and it'll be mea culpa season.
The thing with their quarter, and we should probably move a little fast. So just real quick, the thing with their quarterback room, obviously not ideal. Pickett had a good preseason. I'm not super high on Kenny Pickett. I think we know Mitch Trubisky is like very meh at best. The corpse of a terrible garbage person last year was probably still worse than either of those guys, and they still managed to have like an okay yards per game passing offense just on like design screens and 3-yard slants and nothing else. So it's not like they're going from even like the Saints with like late career Breeze could still at least move the ball. Right. Roethlisberger was awful last season. So I'm just gonna roll with Tomlin until he gives me a reason not to.
Fair enough. I can't argue with that logic. That wraps up the AFC North, and now on to what might be the most exciting division in football this year. I think I might have to tune in for every single division game out of the AFC West because they're all slated to just be slobber knocker, high-scoring games.
My bold take of the year is we got 4 playoff teams out of this division.
I wouldn't be surprised.
I would be a little just because the North is so good too, but it's a bold take for a reason.
Yeah, bold take for a reason. We will start with the Kansas City Chiefs. They are at 10.5. And I think it's going to be an interesting way to see how you guys go about this these over-unders because they obviously have 6 games against their division rivals. And all of them are set to be good. Like it's gonna be tough. So 10.5 for the Chiefs. I'm going to go over. And they might be over for all of them, to be honest, but who really cares at this point? But, man, Patrick Mahomes is still that guy. They lose Tyreek Hill, but they still have Travis Kelce. They get discount Tyreek Hill. Discount, like dollar store clearance section. Here. Dollar store clearance section, Tyreek Hill and Marquez Valdez-Scantling. Same, like, role on offense to stretch the field and catch the deep balls. Doesn't have the rap sheet that Tyreek Hill has, but we'll back away from that. And I just think it's going to be another good year for Kansas City. Patrick Mahomes had his worst year ever last year, and they still made the playoffs and won that division. So it'll be another good year in Kansas City, and hopefully Clyde Edwards-Helaire shows some sort of development to help them get to that point. But regardless, you have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback, you're making the playoffs.
Over. They have Patrick Mahomes. That's pretty much all you need to say.
I'm going under.
So, there we go.
Going under. The loss of Tyreek Hill, you look at their schedule, even if you count both of the Raiders games, which I think is a little bit insulting considering how good the Raiders are now, there's like 5 games you look at and go, oh yeah, they should be able to easily win those. I think they're going to win more than 5, but I just think you enter the realm of a lot of toss-up games, and I think, Kelsey's very good. He's getting a little bit older, and we'll see how he holds up over the course of the season, but, and the Packers still win a ton of games. They're in a much easier division playing a much easier schedule with a much better defense, and we saw they had issues, mostly by the playoffs, with offense last year without the trusted options. And they still had Devontae Adams. So I think it's a really tough schedule. I mean, just to quickly go through, at Arizona versus the Chargers, at the Colts, at the Bucks, versus the Raiders, versus the Bills, at the Niners, versus the Titans, versus the Jags. You better win that one. at Chargers versus Rams, at Bengals, at Broncos, at Texans again versus Seahawks. Okay, yeah, that's the easy part. Versus Broncos at Raiders. Like between them being the first seed last year and getting some tough divisions, especially the AFC West, I just think it's a really hard schedule. And I'm not way under, but I think 10. I think they win 10.
So between the AFC North, then I guess that'll be tough to.
Yeah.
You don't think the Bengals or the Ravens make the playoffs then? Like one of the
I
two?
think the Ravens. Yeah. Well, again, it's a bold take. It's a bold take for them.
Right.
All the AFC West teams going.
Right. Andrew? Oh, you already gave yours. I apologize. You
Yep.
already gave yours.
Over. Yep.
Over. So moving on. Where do you guys want to go next? You can go anywhere with this. Andrew, where do you want to go?
I need to double down and add another hot take to this division conversation because, I've had some optimism about quite a few teams on this list: the Ravens, the Bengals, another team we're going to discuss in a moment. I mentioned the Dolphins glowingly, so there's two teams in this division as well that we haven't mentioned that I'm going to talk about glowingly. So somebody has to come back to the pack. I have to just double down on somebody falling out of the playoff contention and making room for someone else. And that team is the Las Vegas Raiders, whose over-under is at 8.5. I'm going at the under. They're going to be the bottom of this division. I know they have a Hall of Fame quarterback in Derek Carr. If you need to know if he's on the level of other elite quarterbacks, just ask one person, Devontae Adams, and nobody else. This is just a numbers game. I have to do it. I understand that there's a lot of risk in this pick, but I'm counting on the Justin Herbert Chargers ascendance, and letting Russ cook in Denver is going to be enough to push the Raiders down in the standings, where I will be vindicated at the end of the season.
I think that has been my sentiment all off season too. Like after the Rush trade, and we kind of really got to look at as to how this division is going to shake out, is that the Raiders can be really good. I just think the rest of the AFC West is that much better, and that they are going to be victims to just the intense division schedule that they have. 2 against the Broncos, Chiefs, and Chargers is tough. Like the Chargers offense is going to be high flying as always. Patrick Mahomes speaks for himself, and with Russell Wilson in Denver, I think that offense is going to, like you said, just ascend. So I think it's not anything against the Raiders that they are going to go under. It's just that everyone else is so much better. Like if you go worst case scenario and that they lose all 6 games against their division rivals, they're already at what? I can't do math right now. 11-6. If they win all the rest of their games, and they still have games against Tennessee, which will be somewhat tough, but then the Niners too. They have to play Pittsburgh. So it'll be tough. It'll be tough to get there for them.
Yeah, these teams get the AFC South, I believe, this year, which should be beneficial. Or no, do they not? Yeah, they do.
Yeah, they do. Yeah.
I think that's going to be tough for the AFC South and good for the AFC West. I'm going to go, it's more in the middle than anything, but I'm going to go over on the Raiders. I think 9 is probably the number. I think they're the 3rd best team in the division, and I'm really low on a different team that made a splashy acquisition this year. So I'm going to go over on the Raiders. I think the offensive line is certainly an issue, but if they can just be like a little below average, I think their offense can be big enough to win them 9 games out of 17.
Right. I think it'll be a fun year. We'll say that. It'll just be a fun year.
I think Derek Carr is a top 15, at least, NFL quarterback, and they have a top probably 5 group of skill position players total. Devontae Adams, Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow, now the 3rd guy. Small Hunter Renfrow, not big country Hunter Renfrow.
Jim Rat, Hunter Renfrow.
Yeah. But I think they're like if they can just keep Carr upright, I think their offense is going to be really special, and their defense just has to be good enough. I don't trust Josh McDaniels, so that lowers them from 10-11 range to 9 range for me. He might not even be there by the start of the year. Who knows? He'll just go away again. Go out for a glass of warm milk or whatever Patriots people do and then disappear. But I'll take the over, but just barely. Same with the Chiefs, just barely over and under.
Right. Okay. Let's do the Chargers next. We'll leave the Broncos for last since they made their big splash in Russell Wilson. Let's go. Let's go the Chargers next. This one is weird that it's a round number over under 10. So the Justin Herbert emergence, I think, is due. I should say due. It's going to continue after what he did last year. And I think one of the bigger things that plays against them is that they don't have fans, man.
I was going to say that they're the Chargers, and they always find a way to blow it. That's, I think, what's really going to play against them.
Right. Like, for all intents and purposes, like, other teams have had more elongated, abysmal stretches of football history, like the Browns.
But none with this much talent.
But none with this much talent, and none with this much heartbreak. Yeah. Like, the Chargers go through a lot of heartbreak. And that's where I feel for their fans. But I like the Chargers a lot this year. Austin Eckler is going to continue to be really good. Justin Herbert's going to keep it on, and just be the star quarterback he's shaping up to be. I really like the wide receiver room between Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, and Josh Palmer. Josh Palmer is third guy by a decent margin, but he's still pretty good along with Jalen Gutton. But they have Gerald Everett too. I think it's going to be a pretty good year for the Chargers. I might go push actually though, just because of those division rival games. Makes it a little tougher for them to make it over that hump.
I'm going push as well, and they have an opportunity really early in the season for me to look really stupid because they open with Vegas next Sunday. So that's kind of like a very interesting right off the bat measuring stick game, because if you're the Chargers and you're going to push someone out of the playoffs, you need to win your games against teams you're competing with, and Vegas is definitely one of those teams. I think one of the big keys for their offense taking even another step forward is if Herbert continues to stretch the field like he does, but limit the interceptions. He threw 15 interceptions last year. I always forget this team is in Los Angeles. I've probably called them San Diego every other time I speak about them. And I might have even done that in this podcast. In my mind, they play at Petco Park along with Manny Machado and at some point Fernando Tatis Jr. But yeah, push. Give me 10 wins and a playoff for the Chargers. Another step in the development of Justin Herbert, and make me look smart when Vegas doesn't make it.
I think if they can just avoid being stupid, which is so hard for teams at times, they'll make the playoffs. All they had to do last year was not like rush whatever. Like, I forget what the scenario was against the Raiders in the final week, but all they had to do was just play for the tie and they get in. And football, big head, dummy mindset played in and cost them playoff berth. Like, I think Austin Eckler was talking to somebody on the Raiders and was like, I forget like who like mouth read what he was going to say, but it was like, were you going to tie? And the guy shook his head and he went, yeah. And Austin was like slapped his head. He's like, oh, like crap. And it's just like, man, like just play to make the playoffs. You don't got to build up your Macho Man persona just to win and say you got it on your own merits. Just get in.
That game was like so much. I feel sorry for the Chargers, but this is tremendous content.
The Darren Rovell tweet.
Game.
I don't. Here's the thing. Here's where I think narratives start to work into this. I think the Raiders clearly made moves to get better. I think the Chargers, maybe a little bit, I'd say less dramatic moves. The Raiders were better last year while dealing with Henry Ruggs, while dealing with John Gruden and that whole situation. And they still were better.
Wasn't Henry Ruggs postseason? Like after?
No, that was going down during the year.
Was it really?
Yeah. Yeah, that was like during the season. They had to release him in the middle of the year. And now they replaced him with Devontae Adams, essentially, in the wide receiver core. So I think the Raiders are just getting a little bit disrespected here with their number at 8.5, the Chargers at 10. I'm going to go over on the Chargers, but again, it's by 1. I think this division ends up being really close with everyone's records because they all play tough schedules and each other. So I'm going to go under just barely on the Chargers.
Khalil Mack being on the Chargers defense now with Joey Bosa is going to be
That's a big one. Yeah, that's a big one.
For offenses. Yeah, it's going to be.
Carr just does nothing for me. Is why I just hate on the Raiders so much. Sorry.
I think
Devontae Adams is going to find your house and come.
I think he's the new Matt Ryan. Quite honestly, I think that's where he is now.
I think he's like dollar store Matt Ryan,
above average game manager essentially.
Yeah, like if you drop him in the perfect situation, he could give you his top end result is like an MVP season and a shot to win it. But he's not going to. Yeah. He won't do it by himself.
Yeah. No, I think that defense it's tough, dude. That defense is our dogs. They're like up there with the Packers, and I think they're going to be the best defenses in the league. Derwin James is a star. Asante Samuel Jr. is going to be a star. I think J.C. Jackson's also pretty darn good, right? If I'm not mistaken. Like he just signed not a big deal, but he signed an extension that was way below market value, if I'm having my signings correct. And I think his age was mad at him for doing it because he could have gotten so much more from another team. But then Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack, I think they're just going to be good.
Yeah, there's health concerns there, and despite having most of those players last season, only the Jets and Lions allowed more points per game than the Chargers. So
yeah,
we'll see with their defense. I think it's a we'll see for me.
Big we'll see energy. And so that brings us to the last team in the AFC West. Broncos country. Let's ride. Their big offseason splash and trading for Russell Wilson and jettisoning Drew Lock and Noah Fant to the Seattle Seahawks. Again, it's a push not a push, it's 10. I think they go 11, so I'll go over. But I'm a big fan of their offensive weapons between Jerry Jeudy. The year after the injury for Courtland Sutton, like I think that's like a new thing that we're talking about as NFL fans, is that the year after an injury is always tough, but the 2 years after an injury is always a really good year. Javonte Williams is still going to be a really good running back, backing up, or then Melvin Gordon III, backing up him. Tim Patrick getting hurts them a lot. He was a big stretch the field guy, but KJ Hamler is as good as a wide receiver too. Yeah, I think the Broncos are going to be good. I would probably say they'll be second in the division if my memory serves me correctly. I had the Chiefs and then Chargers at a push, Raiders. Yeah, Broncos I think are second in the division.
I'll take the under.
Ooh.
I'm going for the under. A 7-win team adds a quarterback from another 7-win team in the hardest division in football, and they're now going to be a 12-win team. And I know that's an oversimplification.
I would say it's an extreme oversimplification.
But Russ has been a fluctuating quarterback over the last few years, and maybe he's just really good, and the pass catchers mean it doesn't matter, and he's MVP Russ for a full season. But I would just like to see it, and I think this is a hard division to give someone the benefit of the doubt. They are another team who really needs to start like 4-1, or really you look to week 7 or week 8. That's their first half is easy. At Seattle, the Russ drama game, versus the Texans, versus the Niners is tough. At Vegas, versus Colts. At Chargers, versus Jets, versus Jags. So you really want to see that. They have to start, I think, like 6-2 if they are going to hit the over. Because then it's at Titans versus Raiders, at Carolina, at Baltimore versus Chiefs, versus Cardinals, at Rams, at Chiefs versus Chargers. Really a sprint to the finish. So
yeah,
they had a good defense last year, but now they're without Von Miller, which they were for part of last season.
They were for part of the year. Yeah, they traded to the Rams.
And they were still a good defense overall, but I just feel like there's been, and who'd they just lose? Tim Patrick,
yeah,
I think.
Tim Patrick
out for the year, which hurts. I think they'll be good, but I'm going to go under again. I think it might come down to tiebreakers who's making the playoffs out of this division. I just think it's going to be close. And I'm low overall on the Broncos, I think, compared to most. But Russ himself could prove, if he looks like an MVP, they're clearly going to be over. I'm just not sure we're going to see it with this schedule.
Fair enough.
Over 11 wins. One of the issues that has been in Russ's career is he's had to run for his life behind a terrible Seattle Seahawks offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
Small sample size, but I've got one article from ESPN's analytics guy, Seth Walter. He has the Broncos offensive line rated as the 4th best offensive line in the NFL going into the season. If that ends up being true, then I think you have a Russ MVP form type season. We're just 2 seasons removed from a season in which he threw 40 touchdowns and led the Seahawks to a 12-4 record.
Right.
So I think that guy's in there. And he's gonna, I mean, he's the vibes seem to be good for him. He's the corniest man in football, but
that's right.
He's living his best life, going to the U.S. Open with Sierra and just getting ready for the season. I think this is a bounce back season for Russ. Last year was tough for them in Seattle, and now he's got the second act of his career, and I think he's gonna take it and run with it. We've seen veteran quarterbacks do it in Denver before.
Sure have.
We're gonna see it again. Will it end with the Super Bowl? I don't know, but I think it's on the table the next 3 to 5 years for them.
Yeah. Alrighty. That wraps up the AFC. I think the AFC is going to be fun this year with all the storylines that are going to go. But let's move on to the NFC.
I think this might be quicker just because the NFC is a lot more boring in my opinion.
Yeah, it's a lot more boring. Let's start with the NFC South, the most boring of all of it. Just because we have our special guest on, Andrew, Carolina Panthers over-under is a 6. Where do you fall on your hometown team?
So, as anyone that listens to Cruising for a Bruising knows, my Milwaukee sports fandom and being just like locked into a team day after day, or I say Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I made this mistake before in the Discord. I know that Green Bay is not near Milwaukee. I know this because I looked into bus tickets to see the distance. But Brewers are my main squeeze, and for the rest of the teams, like I say, they're my lovely side pieces. So the Bucks and the Packers, they're my side pieces, and my main squeeze is the disappointing, usually Carolina Panthers. I'm 6 wins. I'm going over though. Baker Mayfield replaces a Sam Darnold and PJ Walker combination that happened last year. I think that ups the quarterback production. Baker's healthy after trying to play through injuries last year. Christian McCaffrey's back and healthy. Pretty good group of wide receivers when they're at their best. DJ Moore has quietly been one of the more productive receivers in the NFC over the last few years, and that was with a lot of the quarterbacks I just discussed. On the defensive side of things, worried about the defensive line depth, but you got good pass rushers in Brian Burns and Yetur Gross-Matos. Another year of development for Derek Brown at tackle spot. I think the defensive backfield is really strong. Jeremy Chin at safety. J.C. Horn, who was their first round pick last year, returns from injury at cornerback. He has looked fantastic in camp and the preseason. I think he is going to be a shutdown corner for a lot of years if he can stay healthy. Did just lose their really, really good kicker, Zane Gonzalez, for the season. It looks like Eddie Pinheiro replaces him. So that's something that concerns me, because one of the things you need to do when you're a team that's playing along the margins and not expected to do anything is get points whenever you can get points and be reliable there. Upgrades to the offensive line are probably what have me most optimistic. Ike Ekwonu from NC State, my alma mater, added to the left tackle. He's a rookie, so there should be growing pains there. Austin Corbett at right guard. Brady Christensen moving to left guard to pair with Ekwonu there to give some stability there. I think it just is going to level them up to an area where they're in that 7-win range, 8-win range, and which will probably be the worst thing for them, because their biggest weakness is that they are coached by Matt Rule, and that might buy him another year. So I'm optimistic about the Panthers compared to expectations around the league, but I still think they're just not relevant. But I hope I'm wrong.
I'm just gonna go push quickly. I think it's assuming they go roughly 3-3 against the division, either splitting with one of New Orleans or Tampa, and hopefully getting both off the Falcons, although easier said than done. They just have a pretty tough schedule outside of that. I mean, like Seattle and Detroit are in there, so those are the games you hope they would win. But a lot of tough games as well. I believe the NFC South matches up with the I think they have a tough division they play against, the AFC North, which is not easy. So that's why I'm just gonna go push with 6.
I'm surprised you didn't mention Christian McCaffrey, Andrew. I think
did.
Did you? I must have zoned out. I apologize.
I glided past it as I went.
Gotta be
and
careful
Christian
with
McCaffrey.
that.
Yeah, it's like I don't want to say too much.
Yeah.
It's like it's like you're trying to feed a baby deer in your yard. And you're like, I can't move too suddenly. It's a lot like that.
I think he's going to be a big variable for them this year if he's Christian McCaffrey of old and manages to stay healthy. Find your nearest piece of wood. I think they'll be better than 6 wins, but it's going to be, again, just kind of hard for them this year. They have a tough schedule, and as much as I want them to beat the bricks off the Browns in week 1, I don't think Baker Mayfield is that guy.
You're crazy. Motivated Baker is the only good Baker.
But is motivated Baker going to be motivated week 15 against Pittsburgh or
no. Yeah.
week 14 against Seattle?
Yeah.
Like, I just don't know if he can maintain that chip on his shoulder.
I think he has to because he's playing for a contract. That's my reason for optimism. But that being said, optimism means 7 wins. So
Andrew needs to use burners to send him like hate messages before every game, so he's super fired up. Like before the Seattle game, Drew Lock's not even better than you. I bet you can't throw for 2 more touchdowns than Drew Lock this week. He goes out there and throws 5 touchdowns, cites the burner in the post game presser.
I would be doing my part for the squad.
Talking about a WhatsApp message I got one night about telling me how I couldn't throw the ball 50 yards.
Yep. I'll be at like 5 or 6 of these games in Carolina, and I really just hope some of the 7 wins that I'm projecting there are at least with me in attendance, so I can enjoy the season somewhat, except for when I'm watching the Green Bay Packers on my NFL Sunday ticket.
I think I'm pushing on 6.
So. It's a good line.
Yeah. We'll go your other team next, Ty, the Saints. They get back Michael Thomas, hopefully. He's trending towards playing. I think he played a little bit. He practiced pretty much all training camp, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, I
don't think he played the preseason.
They just didn't preseason him, but I think it was close to him potentially returning last year, and they ended up just shutting it down to be safe, which is probably the right move. So, but then Jameis Winston coming back off of an injury, and they added Chris Olave. I think it's Olave, my bad. Olave from Ohio State, which is certainly going to bolster their wide receiving core. 7.5 for your New Orleans Saints without Sean Payton. Ty, where you at? Over pretty easily. They were 5-2 in the first 8 weeks of the season last year with the bye week in there. Despite Jameis only playing the first 6 of the 7 games, Trevor Siemian was their leading passer in a win against Tampa Bay. And then from there, no Michael Thomas, no Jameis Winston. Obviously, they fell apart. Like, what would the Packers' offense look like without Aaron Rodgers and Devontae? Well, we'll see one of those. But, It's just really tough to win without those. They actually end up 4-1 over their last 5, although it was a pretty easy schedule with, like, Taysom Hill and Ian Book as the 2 leading passers in that stage. So assuming they can stay healthier, I think they should easily be able to get to 8 or 9 wins. I don't think they're a juggernaut, but they look to have a good defense again. They should have a much improved offense. I could see them sneaking up even to 10 wins because it doesn't look like a murderer's row schedule, especially because they are in this division that's not the toughest. And then, they got Minnesota. They have Seattle in there. They have some good teams, though, for sure as well. So, yeah, I think they're going to be closer to 8 or 9 than they are 7 or 6.
Alvin Kamara still exists too.
Yeah, and it looks like he won't be suspended, if ever, for this latest thing until after the season for whatever reason, which I guess works for the Saints. But they have good players, I think, on both ends, especially defensively. So I like their chances, even without Peyton, to at least get to 8 wins.
Yeah, the season relatively simple too.
Yeah,
but their bye week is late. Week 14 is a late bye week. So
yeah, it is.
If they get injury play, that might come to bite them. But
well, yeah, and especially you look at no bye, and then the 3 weeks before the bye are versus Rams, at Niners, at Bucks. Like that might be 0-3 just because of fatigue / difficulty in the schedule.
Yeah.
But it's I think they can still rack up enough wins before that to get a couple in the last 4 games and be over 7.5.
Right. I'm gonna agree with you. I think they go over at 7.5 to 8 or 9. Getting to 10 might be. I think 10 is like their best case scenario, unless Chris Olave is really standing out for them with Michael Thomas and their offense is just high flying. Yeah, I'll say over.
I'll say over as well, and I think they're a team that if they start fast and if they can take down Tampa at home in week 2.
So they've had really good success against Tampa in the Brady era.
It's
except
weird.
in the playoffs, unfortunately.
Weird.
And I think if they do that, they can stay in the division race conversation a lot longer. And so if it's a situation where at some point in life we assume Brady's going to show his age or the age of the Tampa roster in general, if that slips them up, then they can be in a position to pounce. I still have this as Tampa's division, but I think the Saints might surprise some people this year. So I'm going over.
Should we just move to Tampa now? I think kind of fascinating. Without Bruce Arians now, the roster's older. Gronk is retired again? Have we heard?
He's retired again, but I just saw something yesterday that he might come back.
Yeah, he might just pull a Brady and skip all the preseason work and then just show up.
Yeah.
It seems like attrition is a little bit taking a toll here. I think they've lost some offensive linemen that could be a big deal. I think due to free agency and injury.
Their line is obliterated right now.
It's it feels like the badness of the NFC is just written into their line at 11.5, which I think is a little high to me. But I think I'm gonna go under. 'Cause their schedule is like such a grab bag where I think they could definitely get 11, but I could also see 10 being very possible. So I guess I'll just, out of pure spite, but like build in like negative outcome coin flips for them and say under, but it's probably still going to be like 10 wins. And they probably still win the division.
I think it depends on...
They could also start 0-4.
Yep.
Which is a big deal.
I think it also depends on if Brady sucked the young out of his life, out of his kids' lives again this offseason by kissing him on the mouth like he's known to do.
Yep.
I also think he has a weird energy coming into camp. He was not around all training camp, and everyone's like, "Where's Brady? Where's Brady? Is he the masked singer?" Turns out, no. But
what do you mean? Turns out, no. We don't know that yet.
Somebody had confirmed that he wasn't. I'm pretty sure, but
of course they. Oh yeah. It's
regardless.
Listen
whatever.
Up,
regardless of it all, I thought his snap at the reporter saying he goes, "Listen, man, I'm however many 45, 44 years old. I got a lot going on in my life outside of football." It's like, yeah. Maybe it's time to retire then. Like, we understand that there's shit goes on, but you've signed up to play again. All because you probably did it out of spite to make sure Adam Schefter doesn't announce your retirement. Like, I think if he gets to announce his retirement like he wanted to, he's not playing this year. I honest to God believe that. And because he's just that kind of...
My take is he saw how the NFC developed, and that's why he's back.
I think it's pure spite from Adam Schefter. Because remember when it got announced, and Adam Schefter was like, "Yep, Brady's retiring," and then everyone's like, "No, Brady hasn't said that." And even his agent was like, "Brady hasn't said he's retiring yet." And then it came out, and then Schefter was like, "What's up? Like I'm right."
Yeah,
and I think that might have had something to do with it. But I think if we get to go back to the original point I was making, if we get like somewhat of a quote unquote prime Tom Brady, sort of how he's played the last few years, they'll be the best in that division regardless. They probably make that 11.5 win mark. But I think behind that line, it's going to be a lot harder than they think it is to get to that mark. I'm going under 2. Just because their schedule is ruling. Like you had said, the first 4 games against Dallas, at New Orleans, Green Bay, and Kansas City. If nothing goes their way, that's an 0-4. But they also have to face Baltimore and the Rams, San Francisco, and the Bengals. Like, they have a tough schedule. And
their first 9 weeks at Dallas, at New Orleans, versus Packers, versus Chiefs, versus Falcons. Like, they really need to win that one. At Pittsburgh, not an easy place to win. At Carolina, division games are never simple. Versus Ravens, versus Rams. Like, that is probably up there with the hardest first 9 games of any team in the league.
Yeah. Luckily, they get Baltimore and the Ravens at home,
Yeah.
so that'll be a
Baltimore
little
and the
bit of.
Rams.
I apologize. Yeah, Baltimore and the Rams. So we'll see. But yeah, I think it happens every year. This is the year Tom Brady goes down, or this is the year Tom Brady sort of regresses. We'll probably come to have, like Andrew said, a mea culpa at the end of the season. But um, I'm really intrigued to see the Buccaneers this year.
I'm going underrated 11 as well. Someone from TuaNon just DM'd me and said Brady has been doing ritualistic blood sacrifices with animals during his time away to maintain his youthful appearance and play. So I haven't confirmed that. That's just a DM I just got. So I don't know. Can't confirm, but that could explain his him being missing. But again, according
to and
yeah, who can say? But TuaNon in my DMs.
It's a good person to have on your side. Alrighty, so then we'll touch briefly on the Falcons.
Under. They suck.
Over under 5.5.
Garbage
under.
franchise. Doesn't deserve anything. Under. They can't pipe in wins, only crowd noise, so under.
Andrew, do you have a take as a fellow division rival of the Atlanta Falcons?
Under. Miss me with this Marcus Mariota renaissance. That's not happening. I'll be in the building October 30th, bringing my own crowd noise, but I'll be rooting for the team on the opposite sideline of the Falcons. But yeah, under for me. I think they're the worst team in this division, and if they're not, I'm going to have a really tough year.
I also am going under. I think they're building towards something, but it's not including Marcus Mariota. I think Desmond Ridder is going to be pretty good. And Kyle Pitts is already pretty good. He's shaping up to be the tight end Julio Jones, just catching all the passing yards and none of the touchdowns, which, as we reiterated last time, no one cares about my fantasy team, but I have him in fantasy, so I'm hoping that can change this year. But other than that, there's nothing to be excited about on this roster. So, yeah, under.
Should we do the East or the West?
Let's do the East, because the West... no, let's do the West. Let's do the West.
Okay.
I think the West or the East has a little more option to be exciting, and I think the West isn't going to be that. So, we'll start with the bad team this time, just to get them out of the way.
Yeah.
The Seahawks at 6.
Under.
I think it's way under.
I think they're bad. I think they're really bad. They're in a good division. And they're just going to be really, really bad. Geno Smith won the job easily.
Yeah.
R.I.P. to Drew Lock's career.
I think the part of the issue with that number is that this article is from May, but 6 is still.
Was it? That was not pre-Russ trade, is it?
No.
Yeah.
No, it's not.
Okay.
Yeah, but still, 6 is. The Brady Henderson who wrote his little prediction for the Seahawks took the over, which seems like I want whatever he's smoking to think that this is going to be a 7-win team. But yeah, the only highlights outside of that team on the team, I apologize, are DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. And with Geno Smith throwing to them, not going to be fun.
Yeah, I think Pete Carroll's a dinosaur and the league has passed him by.
I agree. Andrew?
Hard under. And they need to be under because they need to be in a position where they can draft their next quarterback in the next draft. Is Bryce Young draft eligible this year? Because I think it might be him.
I'm pretty sure he is.
They don't even have a super easy schedule. I mean, they have Detroit and the Jets. But outside of that, I'm not looking at many teams where I'm like, oh yeah, and the Giants. Outside of that, I'm not seeing that many teams where I'm like, oh yeah, they're as bad as you are. Falcons, right. I guess. That's 4, but I don't think they even win all 4 of those.
Right, I agree. Okay, let's move on to the more fun teams in this division. The Arizona Cardinals. Over under 9. I think what is really important for this team is we have to see what their schedule is post October 31st.
Is that Hopkins?
Nope, that is Call of Duty release date.
Oh, boy.
So, post October 30, they're play doomed. Seattle, the Rams, the Niners, the Chargers, bye week, the Patriots, Denver, Tampa, the Falcons, the Niners again. That's a tough, hard end of the schedule.
It's
Memes
tough
aside,
before that too, is the
memes
problem.
aside, yeah. Like they start with Kansas City, the Raiders, and the Rams. That's really hard.
And they have Philly week 5, who is a lot of people's pick to win the NFC, or at least the
Yeah,
NFC East.
yeah. They could certainly go 1-5 their first 5 weeks.
Yeah,
The only win being the Panthers, probably. Sorry, Andrew.
we'll see about that. The Panthers might pound them. I'm going under. I think they're clearly not the worst team in this division, but they're also clearly not one of the top 2 in my opinion. And I know they've
Right.
gotten better every year, and this might be disrespectful to what they've done before, but I think the Niners are going to be better, and the Rams obviously are going to be quite good again. So I'm going under on the Cardinals, especially without Hopkins for however many games.
I think it's
8,
six,
6 or 8.
6 or 8.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I 9 is it's hard to say under because they just extended Kyler Murray and they have James Conner at running back.
Yeah, and they clearly trust him because they tried to write in a clause into the contract that he has to study every week. I think
Yeah.
bad vibes, bad schedule, okay team.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. It's gonna be under for me at 9, solely because I think DeAndre Hopkins missing hurts them. They have Marquise Brown and the corpse that is AJ Green.
Oh
But
God.
man, yeah, they still have him. Um, I just think they have a really tough schedule, and I think if they don't make the playoffs here, there's going to be shakeups, big shakeups in Arizona.
I'm going with a push
Mm.
for this. I'm going 9 wins, 9-8, but they just barely missed the playoffs, and the vibes are bad, but not bad enough for Kingsbury to get fired.
Is that
That's
good or
like-
bad for them?
It's the Matt Rule conundrum
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
Panthers, where
Yeah.
it's like, well, we can't fire this guy, but where are we going? And I think it's just another year of kind of just okay play.
Yeah.
And the video game release date, another thing,
A lot
to
working
factor
against
in.
them this year.
It's funny, but I kind of feel bad for Kyler to an extent. So I hope he plays well. I like watching him play when he does play well. But it's going to be great content to check in on for NFL podcasts around the country.
I'm sorry for the Arizona Cardinals. This is great content. I think it's going to be the midseason Hard Knocks is going to be must watch. It's going to be fun.
What do you mean the midseason?
So Hard Knocks starting last year doesn't just do preseason anymore. They have a midseason.
Oh my God, that's
edition.
insane. Who was last
fought
year? How did I not hear
The
about this?
Colts. The
Oh,
Colts.
that's why no one cares about the Colts.
Right, but they lost at the end, so
Yeah.
I didn't watch it. But yeah, the midseason Hard Knock starts again right after it's that push that we said is grueling for them. The Seattle Rams, Niners, Chargers. It starts right about there. It's gonna be some good Hard Knocks content. We might see Kyler Murray throw a controller. Anyways, moving on to the elite teams in this division. We'll go to the Niners since we'll leave the Super Bowl winners for last. The Niners are at 10. Moving on to Trey Lance starting, presumably, considering, well, I saw a little hesitation from Andrew there. So Trey Lance most likely starting the season for the Niners, you'd assume, if they waited all this time to make Jimmy's weird contract and then start him, it's just a conundrum as to what they're even playing towards. So since you emoted, Andrew, where do you have the Niners this year?
Oh gosh, this is the toughest one on the board for me because
Yeah.
they are a good team, and I just do not know what to think about Trey Lance right now. And if you told me by week 4 Jimmy G is starting just to salvage a season, I wouldn't say that that's out of the realm of possibility. Just because Lance has not played a lot of football in the last few years because of the COVID schedule with his college career, and then obviously. Last season, what did he throw? 71 passes. And I think has had moments where he's looked really exciting and really good and something that you can project into the future. And then you hear all the stories about him struggling in camp and it's not going well. And now you have the weird Jimmy G contract thing going on. And I mean, there's just a possibility that they find themselves in a position where it's not working out with Lance a few weeks into the season. They just have to say, all right, one last ride with Jimmy G and see what happens. All that being said, I think this roster and this coaching staff is good enough to get the job done. The over-under we have here is right at 10. I'm going to take the easy way out. Well, no, you know what? I'll take the hard way out, and I'll go 11 wins over.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm higher on them. I'm also gonna go over. I think they actually kind of lucked out schedule wise. I mean, they start with Chicago and Seattle. They also have, Andrew, Carolina. They have Atlanta. Obviously, the Arizona games we like for them. We like the Seattle games. They get Miami, Washington, and the Raiders as well. So I think they can hang with pretty much anyone in the NFL. I think they have a lot of games against teams, so I think they should be able to handle a team with a good defense. And I think Lance probably is not as good of a thrower as Jimmy G, but may help the offense more anyway, just from the running threat, raising the ceiling of that offense. And we know this is an inventive offense. They move Debo around. I think they're going to be able to do a lot of things.
Not anymore.
Really, well, we'll see.
Part of Debo's contract is that he gets bonuses for every rushing attempt he gets. And if he has like one rushing attempt, he gets like $1 million.
They can afford it. I think they'll use him. He'll get fairly compensated just fine. They have good running backs too, but
yeah,
I like the over for San Fran. I think there's a shot they win the division. I think them and the Rams are going to be pretty close.
Yeah.
Again.
Yeah, I think it's going off of Andrew's point of that if by the Carolina game they started to go to Jimmy G, that would be surprising but not unexpected. I think they have to start 2-0. If Trey Lance can't beat the Bears or the Seahawks, there is a problem. And you cannot throw 0-2 or 1-1 Trey Lance to that Denver defense. That's just cruel and unusual punishment.
I would lock them in at 2-0, to be quite honest. I don't think there's any shot. Maybe Seattle just for the division weirdness, but...
Right. Again, I'm not going to lock it because I'm not that confident.
I'm lock, stock, and barrel. Mortgage, I don't have on it.
But yeah, I think if Trey Lance is proven to be the quarterback the Niners think he is, it'll be a good season for the Niners. They have, I'm not gonna say a simple second half schedule, but they kind of luck out in that after their bye week in week 9, they go Chargers, Cardinals, Saints, Dolphins, Buccaneers, Seattle again, and then the Commanders. They end the season with the Commanders, the Raiders, and Arizona. So it should be 3 winnable games for them to end the year. I think what it was what Andrew said is that the roster around them is incredible. Like they're specialists in Debo and that running back room, along with their defense. That up this to be a good season for the Niners. It's always the quarterback though. If you don't know and aren't certain what your quarterback, it'll be games that you should be winning might be losing, and causing some strife. So we'll see. Yeah, but I think 10? I will go over at 11.
Yeah.
11, 12. So, and now your Super Bowl winning Rams. Somehow only 10.5.
Yeah, game less than the Bucs.
Yeah, which is interesting because obviously they lose Von Miller. They haven't re-signed Odell. I'm pretty sure he's going to re-sign in LA.
Been linked to the Packers, baby. Also not healthy yet. I think he's going to wait a couple of weeks to make his decision.
Yeah, he's not. Yeah, he's still recovering from the ACL he tore in the Super Bowl. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes. He was linked to the Packers last year. If we'll get to that when we talk about the Packers a little bit, but wherever he goes will be interesting. And I think he might go back to the Rams simply because Sean McVay might come to his house and make him. This is one of my favorite offseason storylines is that Odell crashed Sean McVay's wedding, and they asked him about it in minicamp. They asked Sean McVay about it in minicamp. It's like, oh, I saw Odell was at your wedding. Does that mean he's re-signing? He's part of the team? He goes, well, actually, he wasn't invited. And I told him before that if he does crash the wedding, he has to sign with the Rams. So
there we go.
There you go. It'll be interesting to see what happens, but that team is still going to be good. As a former staunch Matt Stafford depreciator, I'll say, I didn't really think he'd be that good for the Rams. I'm happy he won last year, just to see a nice guy like Matthew Stafford get get his ring that he deserves after putting in his time in Detroit. Um, I think they went from Odell to Allen Robinson, which is going to be helpful for them. They went from half a season of Odell to now full season of Allen Robinson.
Also
I think,
lose Robert Woods though.
yep. So it'll be interesting, but they still have Cooper Cup, and I
Yep.
think Allen Robinson coming from Mitch Trubisky and Justin Fields to Matthew Stafford is going to be a big help for him. I think he's going to go back to the player he was before and be a pretty good wide receiver for them. Cooper Cup winning the Triple Crown last year is going to be hard to replicate, but regardless, I think he's still going to be Cooper Cup and lead them to the playoffs without a doubt. So 10.5, I think I'll go solid over. I think they get 12.
I'm going to go over as well. Tough start to the season with my Buffalo Bills next Thursday night. But yeah, everything you just said. And also this team has Aaron Donald on their defense. And that's a pretty good thing to have because he's good. Stafford,
take.
I'm just coming out here just like saying a lot of controversial things that people are afraid to say, like Aaron Donald's good, Josh Allen's good. Like, guys, I'm here to stir up controversy, just to get those hate listens. But they were 12-5 last year, so I'm comfortable taking that over. I think there was some conversation about worried about Stafford's health and having some shoulder stuff. That's the big what if anything goes wrong there. I don't think they're in a position to overcome that, but it sounds like a lot of that was just noise. Who's their backup quarterback? Is it still John Walford?
I couldn't tell you.
I believe it is. So yeah, if it gets to a situation where Stafford's out and Walford has to play a number of games, that might bump them back. But if that shoulder issue with Stafford is just nonsense and he's fine, then I think this is another great year. Don't know that they'll repeat because I think they've got some teams in the NFC that I like a little bit more, who might make a run in the Super Bowl, but we'll talk about that later.
They
have the hardest schedule.
Yeah, they have a lot of marquee games. I was looking at the schedule. They have one noon game.
Wow.
They have one noon game, and it's against New Orleans the week before Thanksgiving. But they play a lot of what is going to be fun games this year. If the Rams are good, there's a lot of must-watch TV or must-watch football here. Obviously, week 1 against Buffalo, that's going to be really fun. The Niners is Monday night on week 4. The Niners again in week 8. Kansas City, Tampa, Vegas, Green Bay, Denver, the Chargers. They have a lot of fun games and against good teams. So
I'm taking the under.
Yeah, I could see that.
At 10 squarely, but the Stafford pitcher's arm thing is concerning. I think quarterback already can be sometimes prone to throwing interceptions. That could certainly feed into that a little bit, and that's like just a couple of giveaways that can flip games against already really good teams. I think they're still going to be good and certainly in the playoffs and contending for the division, but I think I like the Niners a little more this year, although the Rams certainly do have a lot of star power.
I'm actually going to change my pick. I'm going under. Under.
I win.
After I see congrats. After I see how tough their schedule is and how many marquee games they play, I don't think they win all those marquee games, and it'll be tough. So yeah, I'm gonna go under at 10 like you did.
Sean McVay made a Super Bowl with Jared Goff, so I'm gonna keep believing in him until logic proves I shouldn't.
Fair enough. And now, what you've all been waiting for, the NFC North.
No.
East. What do you mean no?
East?
Oh, we did do East. My bad. My apologies. We spent a lot of time in the West. Ooh,
we gotta blow through the East.
We have to.
Cowboys under 10.5.
Yeah, under. Mike McCarthy is never gonna have
Cowboys.
Go ahead.
Over for me.
Wow.
Over.
Yeah.
What? We're not being fast anymore. What intrigues you about the Dallas Cowboys that you're going 11 wins for Jerry Jones's beloved Cowboys?
Well, they won 12 games last year, right?
Yep.
I think the their division sucks. I don't think there's another team that'll be over 500 in the division.
Whoa.
Wow.
Eagles
They're-
under
they're
5.
ju-
Did you forget about the Philadelphia Eagles?
Yeah, I don't like them. I don't think they're good. I don't care. I think they're 8-9. So that's a
Wow.
hit there. I'm a Dak Prescott believer as well. I think they win 11 games. They have a bad division. They lose in the first round of the
They
playoffs.
lost Amari Cooper, Randy Gregory, Connor Williams, and Lyle Collins. I'm
Who's
going
their
way
left
under.
tackle? They just lost.
Collins, right?
Yeah.
Lyle
Okay.
Collins, yeah.
I think based on last year, they have the easiest
They have an easy
schedule in football.
Yeah.
and you heard it here first. The Eagles suck.
Wow.
Wow.
We got to go Eagles after this. But yeah, I'm
We-
sticking with
yeah.
under. I think
I'm
Dak is
also
very
going under.
situation dependent. I think the situation is worse now.
Yep. I'm also going under.
Micah Parsons is a beast, though.
Yes. Yeah, I'm going under, and I'm just shortly under at 10. But the loss of Amari Cooper is going to be tough, but CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup being there is still going to help. But
One of those guys is injured, I think. I'll
Michael
Google
Gallup is
quick.
coming off of injury.
Oh, that's what it is. Okay.
So, yeah, I'm so surprised that you said under. Andrew,
Oh,
Who-
he said over.
no, I'm sorry, for the Eagles.
Oh, yeah,
I'm moving into the Eagles. I'm done with the Cowboys. Mike
Yeah.
McCarthy is dead to me. They won't do anything significant for quite some time.
Yep.
Under 9 at the Eagles, Andrew?
Yeah. Yep.
What in the world?
I'm looking at their schedule, regretting it now, but I'm gonna count them out.
Yeah.
All right, they're losing. They're gonna lose to the trash Minnesota Vikings on Monday Night Football. They're gonna lose to Arizona, Dallas twice. They're gonna lose to Pittsburgh, who I already said I don't like. They're gonna lose to Indy, Green Bay, Tennessee, and New Orleans. How many is that? Did I get to
don't
9?
even know if that's enough for you.
Yeah.
Oh man. Under.
You said they're-
Like I said,
They're
this is
losing
all
to.
vibes,
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
All vibes.
no logic. But what were we saying?
You said they're going to lose to Minnesota.
Yep.
And then,
Arizona, Dallas twice,
okay,
It's 4,
Pittsburgh,
5,
5,
Indianapolis,
6,
6,
Green Bay,
is 7.
7.
Tennessee.
Oh, that does get to 9. Tennessee and New
And
Orleans.
That's 9 and 8.
No, and New Orleans.
And then they're gonna lose. And New Orleans.
That's 9.
Okay.
Boom.
I wouldn't say
need
that's
it.
way under, but
I think this line's probably moved since this is an older article. I'm sure it's higher now after they got, or maybe not that much higher, but they got Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. I think they had a good draft. I'm going over. I think they win the division. I think they could be a real threat in the playoffs. It'll all depend on Jalen Hurts. But that's a long combo that a lot of people are diving into. I think we just need to wait and see.
Yep.
Decent year. The rushing threat helps their ceiling. A.J. Brown should help him. I like the Eagles. They're all in. I think they have Howie Roseman is really good at his job. I think they probably win like 11 games.
yeah, I'm also going over. I think what is going to be really critical for them is making sure that those wide receivers and running backs actually make the strides they need to. The running back room has always been an enigma since I think it was DeMarco Murray was there. I don't know, he went to the Titans. I forget who their last really good running back was. But Miles Sanders told people not to draft him in fantasy this year, which is like kind of weird saying that like he doesn't think he's gonna be involved in the offense when I think he might be the best running back they have. But then Kenneth Gainwell and Boston Scott are gonna be in the mix too. They also signed Trey Sermon, who is the standout backup for the Niners the last few years. But it's going to be really, really important for A.J. Brown, excuse me, Devonta Smith, and Zach Pascal to be good wide receivers, particularly Devonta Smith. He needs to be an all-pro level wide receiver opposite of A.J. Brown to make sure that they both have success receiving the ball. Like,
He's obviously not going to be an all-pro level wide receiver. There's 2 or 4 in the
there's
NFL?
something like that.
He's
Pro
not,
Bowl.
doesn't have to be that.
Pro Bowl
No, he
level.
doesn't.
I think he does.
Why?
Because Zach Pascal, when he played for the Colts, was extremely streaky, and he sometimes would drop 4 or 5 balls or catch 2 touchdowns. And I think they need something consistent outside of Devonta Smith, outside of AJ Brown, because AJ Brown's obviously going to get the number 1 corner, right?
I mean, they have Dallas Goedert.
Yeah,
It's
he's
good tight end. I think
he's
I think you have a really high bar for what offenses need when you look at other offenses in the league and what they actually
right.
have.
But no, for predicting like what a lot of other people are predicting the Eagles to do, which is win the NFC East for sure, and then win the conference. It's going to be important that their specialist players are showing out. Like
Yeah.
Devonta Smith was I forget where he got picked, but he was a high draft pick for them, and he was picked 10 last year. And I think he needs to continue his trend upwards. Last year he had 64 receptions for 900 yards and 5 touchdowns. I expect him to have almost 100 receptions.
There's
Probably.
no way he's going to on a team with A.J. Brown.
Why not?
Because that's
Why not? Why can't they have like both get near 100?
Why can't they have two guys lead the league in touchdowns and receptions? Because this one, that's how it works.
I think that
Has a team ever had two guys with 100 receptions? I don't know.
I would bet one of the Brady years
Maybe.
with Evans and Godwin might have.
Or Welker and somebody, because Welker just caught a billion passes.
Right. Regardless, I just have high expectations for that offense, and in order to achieve that, they have to make sure their receiving core lives up to what they're expected to do.
Yeah.
Listen, cheesesteaks are dope. Philly's a great city. So still let me back in your city, Philadelphia.
Please don't throw batteries. Please don't throw batteries at Andrew. We love him. We don't need them hurt.
I've been to the link for an Army-Navy game. Nice setup in like a little area with all of the major arenas. They've got Wells Fargo, Citizens Bank right in the same area. There's like a big food and drinking area right in the middle. So, I'll go to an Eagles game and then just root against them just so that I can be proven right by this impulse take based on no data.
It's a dangerous place to go to do that.
We'll gloss over these next two teams. Giants over under is 7. I'll go under. Under. I don't think Dan Jones does anything of note this year. Commanders 7.5 under.
They have a really easy schedule, so I could see them ending up at 8 and 9. But I am a Carson Wentz hater, so I'll go under.
Same. I'll go under. Carson Wentz being the hope to turn around your franchise. It's not great. So,
Ask the Colts about it.
The Commanders having Antonio Gibson and then subsequently hating him and putting him only on punt returns is going to be an interesting narrative throughout the year. He lucked out with the unfortunate news of Brian Robinson's attempted robbery injury when he got shot.
Yeah.
But that'll help his case, as weird as that is to say. But I think it's weird when you're taking one of your better running backs in Antonio Gibson and being like, yeah, you just can't cut it even on the running back roster, just returning kicks. So
yeah,
it'll be an interesting season for them.
I could see them going over, but I'm just gonna guess under.
They have they're one of the other teams that has a late bye week at week 14, so
yeah,
that's gonna be hard for them. Alrighty, now on to what you've all been waiting for. Finally, the NFC North, where our beloved Packers. Should we start the Packers first or end with them?
Save the best for last, baby.
Yeah. We'll put the worst at the front.
I actually think there's not going to be too much drama in any of these, save maybe one.
We'll start with the worst. The Chicago Bears. That's worst in opinion, not over.
I was going to say it's not the worst on this sheet here.
I had to put the Bears first. It's a matter of morals and ethics. Over under 6.5 in Justin Fields' sophomore season. They lose Allen Robinson. I believe they're obliterated at wide receiver.
Yep.
I think N'Keal Harry is hurt. Who's their other receiver that got hurt?
I don't know.
I forget who it was, but yeah, it'll be a tough season for him. Oh, Darnell Mooney, he got hurt, which is like their wide receiver one. So Dave Montgomery's still good. That defense gets worse without Khalil Mack.
And potentially without Roquan Smith, who wants out.
He's still going to play this season. He said he's not going to do contract negotiations in season, but yeah, Roquan Smith being awful on the vibes isn't going to help.
Yeah.
Yeah, 6.5. I'm hitting the under. I will, unless Justin Fields has some sort of miraculous jump. I don't see the vision for them to get to 6.5.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like the new regime there cares about him because they basically did nothing to help him on offense, with either the line or the skill position players. N'Keal Harry, who's now hurt, doesn't really count as a big move to help your young quarterback. I would take the under on 4.5. I think they're going to be dreadful. So easy under here. Andrew?
Oh, I'm going under. I think they drafted a guy that could have been a competent NFL QB, and now
Yeah.
they're proceeding to ruin him, and it's sad to see. Just no reason for optimism right now if you're a Chicago Bears fan. And I know what that's like, so it's relatable.
They didn't even have a first round pick this year, which is so awful for them. The Raiders had it.
Oh, is that the last of the
I
Mac?
think it was, I think it was the last of the Mac.
Wow.
One of them. I know it was from Mac, so
Yeah.
that's tough for them because they need some sort of a high pick. So yeah, under for all of us. Next up is the Detroit Lions. I'm Detroit Lion pilled after watching Hard Knocks. I want the Detroit Lions to be everything they possibly can be in this world, that short of being better than the Packers. Another team I think is really building towards something special, but is still limited by their quarterback.
And they're just generally
talent advantage over it, they're going to take care of business, and then they're going to do things like go 0-2 to the Packers, lose to the Cowboys, and just like lose to those teams that are just like one level above them. That's kind of what I'm feeling for the Vikings.
Yeah. Also, yeah, I think just health will be big for them. If Dalvin Cook can stay healthy and Justin Jefferson and the receiving core can stay healthy, it'll be good for them. And last, and certainly the best, the Green Bay Packers. We are slated at 11 wins.
Kind of crazy.
But it kind of makes sense given that they lost Devontae Adams and there isn't really a lot to prove or a lot to get excited for at the receiving level right away. Like, there's nothing to be excited for the future. But for this season, it's how are we going to navigate missing Devontae Adams and missing a real playmaker to start the year at receiver? Is Alan Lazard that? He very well could be, but we just don't know yet. And I've said this before on this podcast, I've likened this team to what the Super Bowl winning Broncos were with Peyton Manning, to where the defense is really going to carry them this year. And if they can make it to the Super Bowl, it'll be because somebody is showing out in the receiving core, like Demaryius Thomas was for the Peyton Manning Broncos. And so it'll be good, I think. I think I'm hitting over for sure because I'm confident this team is going to be better than advertised, especially at the receiving core. But for their hard games, I only count a couple. And
they got AFC and NFC East for their out of division teams, which there's a couple hard teams in there, but there's also a lot of very winnable games. And I think the North, if you look at North Sans Packers, it's probably the widest talent gap any team has with the whole rest of their division.
Right, exactly. So like the only hard games they have are at Tampa, at Buffalo, and at Philly. And then they play the Rams at home in week 15. So out of their 17 games, 4 of them are really tough. Those are the only ones I see them having a chance to lose, if that makes sense. The other ones they have they have to play Dallas and Tennessee before they play the Eagles, but I see them winning both those games handedly. The rest of their games and their other 13 games outside of I listed, I think they should just win easily. Like they have a chance to win those. Those 4 that I listed are the ones they could lose, which inevitably leads us back to Matt LaFleur only being able to win 13 games this season, which is a good problem to have.
Yeah, so, you think?
You think?
And I think, too, how it usually goes, right, is they go 2-2 in those hard 4 games and then drop a game or 2 that you would expect them to win, which is typically how it goes. But, yeah, I think easy over. 13, funny enough, is a pretty good number here, but 12 wouldn't shock me. 14 would be surprising. I think 14 would be pretty surprising, but 12 or 13 I think feels the safest here.
I'm going over, and I'm having them at 14-3 on the
year.
I think they're going to be the 1 seed in the NFC. Get the bye there. I think Aaron Rodgers came back and stopped, flirting with potentially leaving, retiring, whatever it may have been, to prove something, even though he has nothing to prove. And I think him doing this with coming out and just having a massive season with an unproven wide receiver group is something just another box to tick on his resume, and something that maybe drives him to give a little more credence to the regular season, even though the Super Bowl is the ultimate goal. Obviously, they plan to clean up special teams issues, so that won't be a thing that I'm seeing on Twitter with people that I follow for Bucks and Brewers reasons, and I'm just seeing a deluge of tweets about special teams. I don't know. I think, to your points, the schedule sets up well for them. They've got those marquee games, and I think those are also games that someone driven like Rodgers will want to win as kind of another feather in his cap, as what he's doing at the end of his career, and he may not say this publicly, and it might be all good vibes and yelling about media stuff, but you're at the end of your career, it's the same thing that Tom Brady's doing, but you're padding your legacy and you're adding things that for people to talk about for years to come. And that has to be in the back of his mind. And there are lots of opportunities this regular season to be like, yeah, I'm still the guy, I'm still him, and then take that momentum and take some of the advantages that come from having a good regular season and getting a bye in the playoffs, and use that to kind of right the wrongs of previous playoff failings, because that's the one thing like that I guess people come back with when talking about the career of Aaron Rodgers as a Green Bay Packer and what the organization has been with him in the helm at the helm. It's one Super Bowl and playoff devastation.
Yep.
And this season can turn that around and be just the exclamation point on his career, even if it doesn't end. Like I think we all expect him to play another 2 to 3, 4 years. If possible.
At least two, including this one.
And like that, this can be the first step on closing the book, his final act. Like he's a guy that definitely loves to get the last laugh on people.
Yeah.
And I think this season can be that in the regular season and in the playoffs. And it's just kind of what I think the narrative of the season is going to be. And then I think we get that Packers-Bills Super Bowl matchup.
That would be a fun one.
If he does ball out like you're expecting, Andrew could tie 2 NFL records this year. Most MVPs with 5 and most consecutive with 3. Peyton has 5, and of course Brett Favre won back-to-back-to-back MVPs in the late 90s, mid to late 90s. So
yeah,
could be fun to watch. But yeah, Packers over. I think honestly, maybe it's just because we're closest to it as a Packers pod, but the North to me kind of the easiest of the divisions to peg in here.
Yeah, it's a lot of like just chalk, right?
Yeah,
it's nothing really is going to surprise us this year unless
something does.
13-4
Lions, baby.
Oh boy, come catch me at the season end podcast, just taking a victory lap on the Packers getting the wild card, and the Lions being 13-4.
I'm moving to Detroit if that happens, and opening a pizzeria.
So yeah, we'll touch more on this season for the Packers coming up.
Yep.
On Thursday, I believe, will be that podcast. We're going to be talking about the Packers season ahead and a preview of the Minnesota Vikings. So before we sort of wrap up, I'd like to thank both of you, Andrew and Ty, for joining me on this, our longest to date. I'd probably say close to 2.5 hours on an NFL
look
sort of go around.